So hey guys, welcome back to our YouTube channel. So in this video we are going to see what if Harry awakened Dark Lord's power and befriended Basilisk. So this is a movie, and if you want more movies like this, then please leave a like, share and subscribe. Also you can suggest me more ideas for the next video, and you can always skip the intro. So let's get in the video.
The first time Harry noticed the castle listening to him, it was something so small he almost dismissed it. A corridor candle. Just one. It had been burning steady, warm and gold, until Harry stepped beneath it, still half stunned from being stared at all day, as if his voice alone could turn skin to stone. The flame dipped. Not flicker like a draft. It bowed like something lowering its head. Harry stopped so abruptly Ron bumped into his shoulder. "Oh, mate, what are you?" Harry looked up at the candle. It steadied again the moment Ron moved beside him, like the corridor had remembered it was supposed to behave. Hermione, walking on Harry's other side, frowned at the ceiling. Probably a fluctuation in the enchantment. Hogwarts is very old. Yeah, Ron muttered, still irritated. And apparently it's old enough to blame Harry for everything now. Harry kept walking, but he couldn't shake the feeling. It wasn't just the candle. It was the way portraits shut their mouths when he passed. The way staircases seemed to hesitate, like they were deciding whether they wanted to help him or inconvenience him. And it was the way his scar had started, not hurting exactly, more like itching from the inside, as if something behind it wanted out. They passed a group of second years who immediately went quiet. One boy pulled his friend closer, like Harry might bite. Harry didn't look at them. He didn't want to see their fear. He didn't want to see their curiosity either, because curiosity wasn't kindness. Curiosity was just another kind of sharpness. By the time they reached the fat lady's portrait, Harry's jaw hurt from how hard he'd been clenching his teeth. "Password?" the fat lady asked, but her eyes slid past Hermione and Ron and settled on Harry with a peculiar weight, like she was evaluating something. "Fortuna Major," Hermione said briskly. The portrait swung open. Harry stepped through first and felt the common room's noise soften, almost imperceptibly, as if the whole place had inhaled and didn't know whether it should exhale around him. Then someone laughed too loudly, and the sound snapped back into normal life. Harry climbed the stairs to the dormitory without speaking. Ron followed. Hermione didn't. She paused at the bottom of the staircase, gaze lingering on Harry like she wanted to say something but didn't know how to do it without making it worse. Harry didn't give her the chance. He just kept going. Later, when the dormitory was dark and the other boys were breathing in the steady rhythm of sleep, Harry lay on his back and stared at the canopy of his bed. The curtains felt too close tonight. The air felt thick. He slid a hand up to his forehead and pressed lightly against the lightning bolt scar. The skin was smooth, the old mark unchanged, yet it felt warmer than the rest of his face, like a coal buried under ash. He closed his eyes, and that was when he heard it. Not a whisper this time. Not the thin, slithering sound he'd heard in the corridor before Mrs. Norris had been found stiff and cold, staring. This was deeper, older. It didn't come from the walls. It came from underneath them. "Cool me." Harry's eyes snapped open. The voice wasn't English, but he understood it anyway. It pressed the meaning directly into his head, like someone had taken a thought and simply placed it there. Harry's heart hammered. He sat up slowly, listening. The dormitory was still. Ron's bed creaked softly as Ron shifted in his sleep, unaware. Harry's scar tingled. "Cool me." A shiver ran up Harry's spine. It wasn't fear. Not exactly. It felt like being called. Like something had been waiting for him and was tired of waiting. Harry glanced toward the stairs. Then, because he was Harry and curiosity had been the first and most reliable friend he'd ever had, he slid out of bed. He dressed quickly, jeans, jumper, trainers, and pulled his cloak over his shoulders. For a moment, he hesitated, looking at Ron's bed. He could wake him. He should. But Ron would insist on coming, and Ron would talk, and Ron would make jokes to mask his fear, and the voice in Harry's head felt like it would vanish if Harry wasn't alone. He reached for his wand. The holly and phoenix feather felt steady in his grip, but the moment his fingers closed around it, his scar pulsed, like something inside him disliked how easily he leaned on borrowed tools. Harry swallowed, gathered his cloak, and slipped out. The corridor outside Gryffindor Tower was empty. The castle at night wasn't silent, not truly. It breathed and creaked and whispered the way old wood and older stone always did. But tonight it sounded attentive. Harry moved quietly, the floorboards giving a soft sigh under his steps. The voice didn't speak constantly. It didn't need to. Harry just knew which way to go. Down one staircase, then another, past a portrait of a wizard snoring in a chair, through a passage Harry didn't remember being there last week. At one point, he almost turned back. The corridor ahead narrowed and darkened, and Harry's skin prickled with the awareness that he was going deeper than he'd ever gone before. Then the scar warmed again, gentle, insistent. "Cool me." Harry went. The torches along the walls dimmed as he passed. Not like they were failing, like they were lowering themselves for him. Harry stopped and stared. The torch flame leaned toward him. Then, as if embarrassed, it straightened when Harry frowned. Harry's mouth went dry. "What are you?" he whispered, not sure if he meant the torch, the voice, or himself. The castle didn't answer in words. But a door at the end of the corridor, an old wooden thing with iron bands, clicked softly, unlocking by itself. Harry stared at it. He hadn't even raised his wand. Slowly, he walked forward. His hand reached out, fingers hovering over the handle. His scar pulsed. Once. Harry turned the handle and pushed. The door swung open without complaint. Beyond it lay a cramped room that looked like a forgotten storage area. Broken desks leaned against the walls. Old banners were folded and piled like shedding skin. A smell of dust and stone hung heavy in the air. Harry stepped inside. The door closed behind him with a dull thunk. He spun, wand up. Lumos. Light flared, and then wavered, as if the spell itself was unsure whether it should obey. Harry frowned harder, concentrating. The light steadied. His heartbeat slowed, just a little, because even if the castle was acting strange, his wand still worked. His magic still worked. Except, his scar prickled again, and the air in the room changed. Not colder, denser, like invisible pressure pressing down on the space. Harry's wand light dimmed slightly. From the far wall, something moved. Not a creature. A panel of stone slid aside with the smoothness of a well-oiled mechanism. Harry froze. The movement wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was confident, like the wall had done this 1,000 times and was offended anyone might be surprised. Behind the panel was a narrow cavity. Inside sat a small object wrapped in dark cloth. Harry stared, then stepped forward, slow, as if approaching a sleeping animal. The cloth looked ancient, but not decayed. It was preserved by magic, threads holding tight, color stubbornly refusing to fade. Harry reached out. The moment his fingers brushed the cloth, his scar burned, hot, sharp, immediate, and Harry sucked in a breath through his teeth. The cloth unwrapped itself. It didn't fall. It peeled back as if invisible hands were doing it. Harry's throat went tight. Inside was a book. Not a textbook, not a diary. This was a thin volume bound in black leather, its cover smooth and unmarked. No title, no author, nothing. Just a faint, embossed pattern of a serpent biting its own tail. Harry's stomach dropped. He knew that symbol. He'd seen it in the library, on diagrams of old magical marks. Ouroboros. Cycle. Eternity. And something else, something darker beneath it. Dominion. Harry touched the cover. The book's latch clicked open by itself. Harry didn't remember deciding sit, but suddenly he was on the floor in front of the cavity, the book in his lap, wand light hovering above the pages. He opened it. At first, the pages were blank. Then ink crawled across the paper like a living thing, thin lines forming letters that tightened into words. Harry leaned closer, breath held. The handwriting wasn't neat like Hermione's. It wasn't loopy or hurried like Ron's. It was precise, controlled. Every curve and slash felt deliberate. To the heir who wakes alone. Harry's scar throbbed. His eyes darted around the room. Who's there? Silence. The ink continued. You have been heard. You have been marked. You have been left in the hands of fools who call control love and fear wisdom. Harry's stomach twisted. He didn't know why those words struck like a punch, but they did. He thought of the Dursleys. He thought of cupboards and locks and Aunt Petunia's tight mouth. He thought of Uncle Vernon's huge hand on his shoulder, shoving him away from the front door like Harry was dirt. He thought of the way people looked at him now, like he was dangerous, like he was something to be watched. The ink wrote again. Do you feel it? The castle leans toward you. It has always belonged to the blood that built it. It has always obeyed those who speak to it properly. Harry swallowed. This is mad. His voice sounded too loud, too young. His scar pulsed again, sharper this time, like a heartbeat he didn't recognize. The ink flowed on. Parcel tongue is not merely a tongue. It is a claim. Harry's fingers tightened on the page. He'd been treated like a monster because he could speak to snakes. But this was suggesting it wasn't an accident. It wasn't a random side effect of Voldemort. It was something older, something that had been waiting. Harry's skin prickled as if his body recognized the truth before his mind could accept it. He flipped the page, almost angry. The next page was blank for a moment, then it filled. There are 5 doors in you. The first is opened. Harry stared at the sentence. His throat went dry. Then he felt it. Not a thought, not a whisper. A shift inside his chest. Like something had clicked into place. The air in the room pressed down harder. Not crushing, just heavy. The wand light trembled. Harry tried to steady his breathing. Stop that, he said aloud, as if speaking to the room itself. And the pressure eased. Harry blinked. He hadn't cast a spell. He hadn't even lifted his wand. Yet the room had obeyed. His scar throbbed with a low heat. Harry looked down at the book again. The ink moved faster now, as if responding to his attention. You are afraid of what you might become. Good. Fear is a leash if you hold it. Harry's mouth tightened. I'm not, he began, then stopped, because he didn't know what he was denying. He wasn't afraid of becoming a dark wizard. He was afraid of being powerless. He was afraid of waking up tomorrow and hearing someone else had been hurt because Harry hadn't done anything, because Harry hadn't known how, because Harry had been too busy being good and polite and waiting for adults. The ink shifted again. You have been trained to ask permission. Power does not ask. Power takes responsibility. Harry swallowed hard. His scar tingled. Then the voice returned, deeper than before, echoing through the stone, not loud, but undeniable. Heir. The syllables dragged, tasting the space between them. Harry's head snapped up. The sound didn't come from the room. It came from the walls, from the floor, from below Hogwarts, where pipes and stone and ancient secrets curled like sleeping things. His wand light dimmed. Then, one by one, the torches in the corridor outside the storage room flared brighter, like the castle itself was lighting a path. Harry stood slowly, book still open in his hands. His scar burned, hotter, not painful but awakening. He could feel the direction like a pull under his ribs. Down. Deeper. He clutched the book to his chest and whispered, "What are you calling me to?" The voice answered, a single word that felt less like sound and more like a key turning inside his blood. Heir. And somewhere far below, something massive shifted in the dark, as if an ancient creature had opened one eye and decided it might be worth listening this time. Harry didn't sleep. He barely breathed. He just moved. Not like a kid sneaking around after curfew. This felt different. Like he wasn't breaking rules so much as walking through a world that had quietly rearranged itself to make room for him. The torches down the corridor burned lower as he passed, as if they didn't want to draw attention. The portraits were closed-eyed, pretending to be asleep. Even the suits of armor didn't clank. Hogwarts cooperated. That thought should have terrified him. Instead, it filled something hollow inside him with a strange, calm weight. Harry kept the black book tucked under his cloak, pressed against his ribs. Every now and then it warmed, like it was alive and satisfied, like it approved of his choices. He took a staircase that definitely hadn't been there yesterday. He didn't question it. The castle didn't feel like a maze tonight. It felt like a map. Down, down, past forgotten corridors and sealed doors that clicked open at his approach like they recognized the shape of his magic. At one point, he caught his reflection in a dark window pane, cloak shadowing his face, eyes too bright, too alert. For a second, he looked older. Not in years, in presence. Harry looked away quickly. He didn't want to think about that. He didn't want to think about what heir meant or why a book hidden inside Hogwarts had written to him like it had been waiting his whole life. He just followed the pull. The air grew damp, cold. The smell of stone shifted into something sharper, old water, rust, and something like shedding skin. Harry stopped at an archway, swallowed in darkness. His scar pulsed. The voice in the walls slid into his mind, slow and patient. Speak. Harry's mouth went dry. He stared into the dark archway, where the corridor ended and a dead wall of stone blocked the way. There was no door. No handed. No lock. Just stone. Harry swallowed. He forced his voice to work. Open, he whispered. Nothing happened. His scar warmed, not angry, almost amused. Harry clenched his jaw. The book under his cloak seemed to press closer. Not in their tongue. The voice seemed to say, without words, that I in yours. Harry's pulse thudded hard. He glanced around, half expecting Filch to appear out of nowhere, eyes gleaming with punishment. But the castle remained still. Harry turned back to the wall. His throat tightened. He spoke again, this time letting the sound rise from somewhere deeper than language. Open, he hissed in parcel tongue. The wall shivered. Harry froze. He hadn't imagined it. The stone rippled like water for half a second, then reset, as if it had been testing him. Harry's scar pulsed again, a quiet insistence. More. He took a step forward until his nose almost touched the cold stone. I am the heir, he whispered in parcel tongue, and the words tasted like metal and ancient things. I command you. The silence stretched, and then the stone split. Not cracking, not breaking. It slid apart with a smoothness so effortless it made Harry's stomach drop. Two massive slabs moved sideways, revealing a black gap beyond them. Cold air rushed out, carrying the stink of centuries. Harry's wand rose automatically. Lumos. The light flared, then wavered again like it was nervous. Harry's scar tingled. Behave, he muttered, at the wand, at himself, at the world. The wand light steadied. Harry stepped through. The door closed behind him with a whisper like a satisfied exhale. The tunnel was wide enough for a grown wizard to walk through comfortably, and the walls were slick with damp. Water dripped somewhere far ahead. Every sound echoed. Harry walked slowly, listening. His footsteps sounded small in here. Too small. He thought of Ginny, of how she'd been pale and distant and not herself, of the way she'd looked at him at breakfast and smiled like she was trying to be normal while something inside her screamed. Harry's hand tightened around his wand. He wasn't here to play games. He wasn't here to be heroic. He was here because something old had called him and because he was tired of not understanding the things that hunted him. The tunnel sloped downward. And then, faintly, he heard it. A voice. Not the deep command voice from before. A different one. It spoke in perfect, casual English, like someone chatting across a table. Harry. Harry stopped dead. His wand snapped up. Who's there? A soft chuckle echoed down the tunnel. Oh, don't look so startled. You've been hearing voices in walls all year, haven't you? Harry's stomach tightened. Tom Riddle. Correct, the voice said brightly, as if he'd won a prize. Come along, then. I've been waiting for you. We have. The we made Harry's skin prickle. He forced himself to keep walking. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber. Harry's wand light painted greenish stone, towering pillars carved with serpents, and a massive statue at the far end. Salazar Slytherin himself, stone eyes fixed forward like a judge. The air felt heavier here. Charged. Harry stepped out fully, breathing slowly. And then he saw Ginny. She lay crumpled near the base of one of the pillars, hair spread like a dark fan. Her skin looked too pale under the wand light, her chest moving so faintly it almost didn't count. Harry's throat went tight. Ginny. He took a step. Ah, Tom's voice said, suddenly close. Hottie spoon. A boy stepped out of the shadows near the statue. Not a ghost, not a transparent memory. He looked real. 16, maybe, handsome in a polished, sharp way. Dark hair falling neatly across his forehead, eyes that held no softness at all. Tom Riddle smiled like he owned the world. Harry Potter, Tom said, savoring each syllable. Finally. Harry raised his wand. What have you done to her? Tom sighed theatrically. Oh, relax. She's merely emptying out. It takes effort to pour oneself into someone else. And I've poured a great deal. Harry's scar burned. The black book under his cloak warmed like it recognized Tom. Harry's voice came out lower than he expected. You're not getting her. Tom's eyes flickered. Such confidence. How charming. Harry stepped forward, wand steady. Give me the diary. Tom laughed. You're going to demand things now? How very. Harry's scar pulsed, hot and sharp, and for a moment the whole chamber seemed to lean toward him. Tom's smile faltered. Just slightly. Harry felt it, the change, like the air had decided Harry mattered more. He didn't know how. He didn't know why. But he wasn't small in here anymore. Harry's wand lowered a fraction without him meaning to. Tom noticed. His gaze sharpened. Interesting, he murmured. That feeling, do you recognize it, Harry? Harry didn't answer. Tom's head tilted, curiosity gleaming coldly. You've always been famous for surviving me. But perhaps that wasn't luck. Perhaps someone prepared you. Harry's stomach twisted. The book pressed against his ribs like a heartbeat. Tom's voice softened, almost intimate. Tell me, Harry, what do you hear in the walls at night? Harry's scar burned again, but this time the heat felt possessive. He didn't answer in English. He didn't answer in parcel tongue. He answered with something that wasn't quite language at all, a pressure in his chest that rolled outward like a tide. The candles along the chamber walls, dim, ancient torches, lowered their flames. The chamber's shadows deepened. Tom's eyes widened. Harry's voice came out steady, strange, and certain. I hear Hogwarts, he said. Tom's smile returned, but it was different now. Less smug, more calculating. Hogwarts doesn't speak, Tom said. Harry looked at him, and for the first time he realized something. Tom was standing in the chamber like it belonged to him. But the chamber was looking at Harry. Harry lifted his chin. Then he spoke in parcel tongue, letting the words slide out like a key fitting a lock. Show yourself. The chamber answered. A hiss rose from the dark far in near the pipes, low at first, then swelling, filling the room like a storm. Tom's eyes flashed. No, he snapped, sudden panic slicing through his controlled mask. Not yet. The ground trembled. Stone dust drifted down from the ceiling. Ginny stirred weakly, a tiny sound escaping her throat. Harry's heart hammered, but he didn't step back. He stared toward the darkness as the hiss grew louder. And then two massive, pale eyes opened in the black. Harry felt the gaze hit him like a physical thing. Not just sight. Judgment. Hunger. Ancient violence kept alive by magic. The basilisk emerged slowly, body sliding over stone with a sound like grinding silk. Its head was enormous, bigger than a horse, mouth lined with fangs long as knives. Tom stepped backward without realizing it. Harry didn't move. He should have been terrified. He was terrified. But beneath the fear, something else rose, an answering force. A recognition. The basilisk lifted its head, and the torches bent lower as if the creature's presence demanded darkness. Harry swallowed, forcing breath through tight lungs. He spoke in parcel tongue, voice shaking but clear. "You are not a weapon." The basilisk's eyes narrowed. Its tongue flicked out, tasting the air. "Master." The words slithered into Harry's mind like ice. Tom's voice cut across the chamber, sharp and furious. "I am your master." The basilisk didn't even look at him. It stared at Harry. Harry's scar burned so hot he thought the skin might split. The black book under his cloak pulsed, as if it approved. Harry's throat tightened around a truth he hadn't wanted. He could feel the basilisk's old magic, sleeping coiled. And he could feel his own magic reaching toward it like two storms meeting. Harry raised his chin and answered in parcel tongue, voice steadier now. "No." The basilisk's pupils thinned. Tom's face twisted. "What are you doing?" he hissed in English, anger slipping. "It obeys me. It was made to obey me." Harry didn't look away from the basilisk. "Maybe," Harry said quietly, "it was made to obey the heir." The basilisk's tongue flicked again. "Heir." The word reverberated in Harry's bones. The air in the chamber grew heavier. The statue of Slytherin seemed to loom. Tom's expression changed from fury to something sharper. "Fear." "Impossible," Tom whispered. "You're not." Harry felt something click inside him. Not a spell. A door. A lock opening. He stepped forward, one single step toward the basilisk. The basilisk's head lowered an inch. Not submission. Recognition. Harry's voice slid into parcel tongue again, smoother than before, as if his mouth had always known how. "I offer you a pact," Harry said. "Freedom. Purpose. No more chains." Tom's eyes widened. "Stop," he shouted, suddenly frantic. "You don't know what you're doing." Harry's gaze flicked to Tom, just once. "I do," Harry said, and the calmness in his own voice startled him. Then he turned back to the basilisk and spoke the most dangerous words he'd ever said. "Choose." The basilisk's gaze bored into him. Harry's scar burned like molten metal. And then, slowly, so slowly, its massive head dipped, lowering until one cold, gleaming eye was level with Harry's face. The voice in Harry's mind was no longer a command. It was a decision. "Speak the terms." Tom Riddle went very still, like a predator realizing the prey had teeth. Harry inhaled, the air tasting of stone and venom. And for the first time in his life, he understood what power really was. Not loud, not flashy, just certainty that the world had to move when you told it to. Harry didn't blink. He forced himself not to. Because the moment he blinked, some ancient instinct screamed that the basilisk would decide he was prey. Its head hovered inches from him, so huge that even the slight tilt of its jaw could have crushed his ribs. Its breath smelled of damp stone and something metallic, old hunger. But its eye didn't look like a mindless monster's eye. It looked like a prisoner's. A prisoner who'd forgotten what freedom felt like. "Speak the terms." The words were not sound. They pressed into Harry's mind like cold fingers. Harry swallowed. Behind him, Tom Riddle stood rigid, anger and fear fighting over his face like two snakes in the same cage. "Don't do this," Tom said, voice sharp. "You don't understand what it is." Harry didn't look at him. He kept his gaze on the basilisk. "I will speak," Harry hissed in parcel tongue, and the words came easier now, like the language had been living under his tongue all along. "But you will listen." The basilisk's tongue flicked once. "I listen." Harry's heart hammered. He could feel the chamber leaning into the moment, stone and old magic tightening around them like a circle drawn on the floor. This was not a conversation. This was a ritual, and Harry knew, somewhere in his bones, that once he stepped fully into it, he wouldn't be able to pretend he was just a boy in a school anymore. He took a slow breath and spoke his first term. "First, you will not kill students of Hogwarts." Tom scoffed under his breath. The basilisk's eye narrowed, and Harry felt a ripple of displeasure, pure, predatory instinct offended by limitation. "Why?" Harry's scar pulsed hot. Because Ginny lay on stone behind him, pale and weakening. Because Hogwarts was full of children who didn't deserve to be punished for being afraid. Because if Harry started letting death happen in his name, he would never, ever get control of himself back. "Because I command it," Harry said, and surprised himself with the steel in his own voice. Then, quieter, more honest, "Because I will not build my power on innocent blood." The basilisk stared. Its tongue flicked again, tasting him. Harry felt something inside him, something heavy and old, shift and lean forward like it wanted to agree. Not out of kindness. Out of order. Accepted, with exceptions. Harry's stomach tightened. "No exceptions." The basilisk's eye glinted, and the chamber seemed to hold its breath. "If they try to kill you." Harry swallowed. He could feel the difference between rules that sounded noble and rules that actually kept you alive. He didn't want to lie to himself. "If they try to kill me," Harry agreed slowly, "you may defend me, but you will take life only if there is no other path." Hard terms. Yes. The basilisk's head lowered a fraction, like it accepted the weight of that. Harry's scar cooled slightly. One term secured. He moved to the next before fear could climb back up his throat. "Second, you'll not hunt in the castle. No roaming the corridors. No feeding on whoever panics and runs." The basilisk's pupils thinned. Hunger. Harry's mouth went dry. Of course it was hunger. It had been locked in darkness for centuries, called only when someone needed it to kill. It wasn't evil. It was starving. Harry's stomach twisted, because that was the most dangerous kind of creature. A creature that didn't hate you. A creature that needed. Harry forced himself to speak carefully. "I will provide food." The words came out rough, like admitting responsibility he wasn't ready for. Not students. Not people. Animals. From outside. Tom laughed, sharp and nasty. "You can't feed that thing with rabbits, Potter." Harry finally turned his head enough to look at Tom. Tom's smile was thin, but his eyes were bright, hungry in a different way. "You think you're making a friend," Tom continued. "It's a weapon. It was bred to obey, to kill, to spread fear. That's what it is." Harry stared at him. Then he looked back at the basilisk. "Third," Harry said, ignoring Tom, "you will not act on another's command. Only mine." Tom's smile snapped like glass. "You arrogant little." Harry cut him off without raising his voice. "Do you accept?" he asked the basilisk. The basilisk's gaze slid, just briefly, to Tom. Harry felt it. Old compulsion, old bindings, deep grooves carved into the creature's mind. And then Harry felt something else. A slow, simmering rage. Not his. The basilisk's. "I have had masters." Harry's scar burned, and the chamber pressed down harder, like it wanted the words to become real. "I have had chains." Harry's throat tightened. "Then break them with me," Harry whispered. The basilisk's tongue flicked. "I accept." Tom's face went pale. "No." he said, suddenly frantic. No, you can't. It's bound to me, to Slytherin's line. Harry felt the book under his cloak warm, as if it approved of Tom's panic. Harry turned fully toward the basilisk again. Fourth, you will not petrify or kill unless I command it, Harry said. And if I command it, it will be for protection, not cruelty. The basilisks I narrowed again. You will limit me. Harry didn't flinch. Yes. Because if he didn't, he'd end up exactly like Tom. And that thought, more than the basilisk's fangs, chilled him. The basilisk stared for a long moment, so still that the chamber felt like a painting. Then, I accept. If you accept. Harry blinked. If I accept what? The basilisk's voice in his mind was almost deliberate now, as if it understood negotiation, as if it had been waiting centuries for someone to offer it terms that weren't just kill or sleep. You feed me, that you do not abandon me to dark, that you do not turn me into a tool. Harry's breath caught. A tool. That was exactly what it had been. That was exactly what Tom wanted it to remain. Harry's scar pulsed hot, and for a moment he felt the edge of something inside him, something that liked the idea of having a monster as an extension of his will. It would be easy. So easy. He could force obedience. He could reduce the basilisk to a weapon and never have to think about its hunger or its mind. Harry's stomach clenched. He heard the words from the book in his mind like a warning. Fear is a leash if you hold it. Harry exhaled slowly. I accept, he said, and meant it. You will not be a tool. You will be allied. Tom let out a harsh, disbelieving sound. Allied? You're talking to it like it's an equal. It's a snake. Harry's voice sharpened, still quiet, but dangerous. So are you. Tom's eyes flashed. For a second, Harry thought Tom might attack him outright. But Tom was clever. He didn't strike when he didn't know the outcome. Instead, he smiled again, slow, poisonous. You know, Tom said softly, I offered people deals too. Promises, protection, order. Harry's scar burned. I know, Harry said, and to his own surprise, his voice didn't shake. And I know what you did to get it. Tom's smile faltered, just for a heartbeat. Then the basilisk moved. Not fast, not attacking. It lifted its head slightly higher, and the chamber's shadows shifted as if they belonged to it. The pressure in the air thickened. Speak the oath. Harry's chest tightened. Oath. This wasn't a handshake. This was binding magic. Real magic. Old magic. The kind you couldn't wiggle out of with clever words later. Harry swallowed hard and stepped one pace closer to the basilisk, feeling his skin prickle under its gaze. He spoke in parcel tongue, carefully, like placing stones in a line. By name and will, I, Harry Potter, bind this pact. You will obey my command above all others. You will not kill the innocent of Hogwarts. You will not hunt the castle. You will act only by my order for protection, not cruelty. In return, I will feed you. I will shelter you. I will not abandon you to darkness, but I will not use you as a mindless tool. This is the pact. This is the order. The moment he finished, the chamber shuddered. Not like an earthquake. Like a living thing accepting a new law. Harry's scar flared so hot it stole his breath. For a second, he felt something vast and coiled inside him, like a crown made of shadow and old stone. Then it settled, heavy and cold, behind his ribs. The basilisk's head lowered, and a voice in Harry's mind spoke with something that sounded dangerously like relief. Bound. Harry swayed. The cost hit him late, like a delayed punch. His stomach rolled. His vision blurred around the edges. He clenched his teeth and forced himself upright. Tom watched him with narrowed eyes, calculating. That was stupid, Tom murmured. Binding yourself. You just put chains on your own neck. Harry's voice came out rough. Better chains I choose than chains you put on me. Tom's gaze flicked to Ginny, and Harry felt it the moment Tom decided something. It was like a shift in the air. Tom moved, not toward Harry, but toward Ginny, quick as a thought. Harry reacted on instinct. Stop. He didn't cast a spell. He didn't raise his wand. He said the word like it was law. The air slammed into place. Tom froze mid-step, like he'd hit an invisible wall. His eyes widened. Harry stared at his own hand, then back at Tom, shocked by what he'd done. The chamber had obeyed him. Tom's expression twisted into something ugly. You can't do that, Tom whispered, anger sharpening into panic. You can't. This is my place. Harry took a slow step forward. The pressure in the chamber deepened around him like gravity choosing sides. I don't think it is anymore, Harry said. Tom's face went blank. Not calm. Empty. Dangerous. You have no idea what you've just started, Tom said softly. You think you can play king? You're a child with a borrowed wand and a scar full of someone else's magic. Harry's scar pulsed. The book under his cloak warmed like it wanted to answer for him. Harry's eyes narrowed. Ginny's dying. Tom's gaze flicked again, just slightly. Yes, she is. Harry felt a cold spike of fury. Fix it. Tom smiled, slow and cruel. I can't. Not anymore. She gave too much. I'm almost complete. Harry's stomach dropped. Almost complete. Meaning Ginny was almost empty. Meaning Harry was out of time. Harry forced his mind to stay sharp. The diary, he said. Give it to me. Tom laughed. Why would I? Harry's eyes slid to the basilisk. The basilisk didn't move, but Harry felt its attention sharpen, like a blade being drawn. Tom's voice lowered. So that's it. You want to threaten me with my own monster. Harry's jaw tightened. It's not yours, Harry said. Tom's eyes glittered. Everything in this chamber is mine. Harry felt the weight inside his chest shift, cold, steady, possessive. And then, from somewhere deep in the basilisk's mind, something surfaced, an ancient memory fragment, pressed into Harry like a warning. Venom destroys, soul anchors. Venom ends false life. Harry's breath caught. Soul anchors? False life? His mind flashed to the diary, to how Tom Riddle was standing here like a real boy, how Ginny was fading like a candle being snuffed to feed him. A terrible understanding formed, only the outline of it, like seeing the shadow of a monster before you see the monster itself. Tom's eyes narrowed, as if he sensed Harry's shift. What did it tell you? Tom asked, voice suddenly very careful. Harry didn't answer. He took a step toward Ginny instead. The basilisk's gaze tracked him. Harry knelt beside her. Her skin was cold. Her lashes fluttered faintly. Ginny, Harry whispered. Hold on. Her lips parted, but no words came. Harry's chest tightened. He looked up at Tom, and his voice came out flat. I'm ending you. Tom's smile returned, hard, brittle. You could try. And then Tom moved, fast, decisive, snatching something from the shadows near the statue. The diary. He held it up, black cover catching the wand light like an open wound. Step closer and she dies, Tom said, voice sweet with menace. Because I'm her now, Harry. And if you destroy me, you destroy what's left of her. Harry went still. His scar burned. The book under his cloak felt like it was laughing silently. The chamber pressed down around him, waiting. The basilisk's voice slid into his mind, patient and lethal. Give the order. Harry's hands clenched. He could do it. He could command the basilisk to end Tom. He could crush Tom's throat under a coil of muscle and end the threat in one clean motion. But Ginny was the leash Tom was holding. Harry forced himself to breathe. Power wasn't about striking first. Power was about not being steered. Harry lifted his gaze to Tom and spoke slowly, carefully, like building a trap out of words. Then we do it my way, Harry said. Tom's smile sharpened. And what way is that? Harry's eyes flicked to the basilisk, then back to Tom. "The way where you don't get to choose," Harry said softly. In the chamber, Hogwarts itself seemed to lean in, as if it wanted to see whether the boy who'd just forged a pact with a monster would become a monster too. Harry didn't move. Not because he was frozen, but because he was thinking. Tom Riddle stood a few steps away, diary raised like a shield, smile sharp as a blade. Ginny lay pale on the stone beside Harry's knee, her breathing so thin it felt like the chamber itself could snuff it out if it got bored. The Basilisk's voice coiled in Harry's mind, calm and lethal. "Give the order." Harry could feel the creature waiting, muscle, venom, ancient obedience now braided with choice. One word from Harry and Tom Riddle would end like a snapped twig. But Tom's threat hung in the air like poison. "If you destroy me, you destroy what's left of her." Harry had no proof it was a lie. And Tom was the kind of liar who wrapped lies in something that sounded logical. Harry forced himself to breathe slowly. He thought of rules. Not school rules. Rules that held up the world. The book's earlier words echoed in his head like a cold lesson. Power takes responsibility. Harry lifted his eyes to Tom and kept his voice calm. "You're draining her," Harry said. Tom's smile widened. "Very good. So you're connected," Harry continued, watching Tom's face like it was a puzzle. "The diary is the anchor. It's how you exist." Tom's expression tightened, just a fraction. Harry felt his scar throb, warm and sure, like something inside him approved of the direction his thoughts were going. The Basilisk's memory fragment flashed again. "Venom destroys, soul anchors. Venom ends false life." False life. Not real. Not meant. Harry looked at Ginny's limp hand, and something cold settled into his chest. Tom wasn't Ginny. Tom was eating Ginny. Harry stood slowly, rising from beside her like a tide lifting off a shore. Tom tracked him with the diary held high. "Careful." Harry nodded once, as if he accepted the warning, as if he was afraid. He wasn't. Not anymore. He turned his head slightly, just enough to look at the Basilisk without breaking the fragile line between them. In parcel tongue, low and precise, he said, "Do not strike him." The Basilisk's displeasure rippled through Harry's skull, hot and hungry. "Why?" Harry kept his voice steady. "Because he wants that. He wants me to be a boy with a monster. I'm not going to give him the story he expects." The Basilisk stilled. It didn't agree, but it listened. Harry faced Tom again. "You said if I destroy you, I destroy what's left of her," Harry said. Tom's smile was bright, confident, too confident. "Yes," Tom purred, "because I am what she has become." "Don't be stupid, Harry. You're so close to being clever." Harry's scar burned, sharp, warning hot. The book under his cloak felt like a weight against his ribs, like a hand gripping his heart to keep it from wavering. Harry didn't raise his wand. He didn't need to. He spoke in English, as if he was talking to a person and not a piece of a soul pretending to be a boy. "Tom," Harry said softly, "say your full name." Tom's eyes narrowed. "What?" "Say it," Harry repeated. "You like hearing yourself talk. Go on." Tom's smile flickered. "Why would I?" "Because you can't help it," Harry said, voice mild as a trap. For a moment, Tom looked genuinely confused. Then his vanity flared, because that was always the weak spot. Tom lifted his chin slightly, like he was addressing an audience. "I am Tom Marvolo Riddle," he said smoothly. The moment the last syllable left his mouth, the chamber answered. It wasn't sound. It was pressure. Like stone recognizing a name it had been taught to obey and rejecting it. Tom's breath hitched. Harry felt the air tighten around Tom's limbs, invisible and unyielding. Tom's arms jerked slightly, diary still clutched in his hands, but his body locked as if the room itself had decided he was no longer allowed to move freely in it. Tom's eyes snapped wide. What did you do?" Harry's voice came out quiet. "I didn't do it," Harry said. "You did. Tom's gaze darted around, panic slicing through his control. He tried to wrench his arms free. The chamber held him. Harry felt the strain immediately, like a cold iron band tightening around his own ribs. The power wasn't painless. It was heavy. It demanded focus. The rule of price. Every large act of dominion left a mark. Harry clenched his jaw and held. Then he looked at the basilisk. Now, Harry hissed in parcel tongue. Take the diary. The basilisk moved, not with frantic violence, with terrifying economy. Its head shot forward, fast enough that Harry barely saw it, and stopped inches from Tom's hands. Its tongue flicked. Tom's face went white. Potter, he rasped, stop this. Harry's eyes didn't blink. The basilisk's teeth closed around the edge of the diary cover, not crushing it, just pinching it like a thing it could remove at will. It pulled. Tom fought to hold on, muscles straining, but the chamber's grip and the basilisk's strength made his resistance meaningless. The diary slid free. The basilisk withdrew, diary clenched between teeth. Tom's scream wasn't loud. It was furious. You don't understand, he snarled, voice cracking. You can't shield die shield. Harry stepped toward the basilisk, arm out. Give it to me, he commanded. The basilisk lowered its head, careful not to let the diary fall. Harry reached up with both hands and took it. The cover was cold. Too cold. Like holding a piece of night. Tom's eyes burned. You're making a mistake. Harry looked down at the diary, then at Ginny, then back at Tom. If I'm wrong, Harry said quietly, then you're not just a monster. Tom's lips curled. Harry's eyes hardened. You're a liar too. Harry turned to the basilisk. Venom, he whispered in parcel tongue. A drop. Just enough. The basilisk's eye narrowed. Venom kills. Not this, Harry said, and felt the strange certainty in his own voice. Certainty that scared him a little. This is false life. You said so. The basilisk held still for a moment, then lowered its head until one fong hovered above the diary's pages. A bead of clear liquid gathered at the tip. Harry's stomach tightened. So small. So simple. The kind of thing that shouldn't decide life and death. The bead dropped onto the diary. The reaction was immediate. The page blackened like paper touched by flame, except there was no fire. Being screamed. Tom Riddle staggered as if he'd been punched in the gut, even though the chamber still held him. No, no, Tom shrieked, his voice suddenly raw and human. Stop! Harry flipped the diary open. The pages were bleeding ink, the words dissolving, the paper curling at the edges where the venom touched. Tom's face contorted, features warping for a moment like his appearance couldn't decide what shape it was supposed to hold. Harry pressed the diary down flat on the stone. He didn't stab it. He didn't need a dramatic gesture. He simply ordered the venom to finish what it had begun. More, Harry told the basilisk. The basilisk obliged, one more drop, then another. The diary's spine cracked. The cover split. And Tom Riddle screamed like the whole chamber was swallowing him. You're nothing. Tom spat, voice splintering. You're a child. You're. His words broke into static. His body flickered, solid, then translucent, then solid again. Harry felt the Dominion strain ease as the chamber stopped resisting Tom and began rejecting him entirely, like an immune system identifying sickness. Tom's last glare locked onto Harry. Hatred so pure it felt like cold water down Harry's spine. Then the diary's pages collapsed into ash, and Tom Riddle shattered, like a reflection punched through. His scream cut off mid-syllable. The chamber fell silent. Harry exhaled, and only then realized his lungs had been burning for air. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, Ginny gasped. It was sharp, sudden, desperate, like she'd been drowning and finally broke the surface. Harry dropped to his knees beside her instantly. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused. Her lips trembled. Harry, she whispered, voice cracked. Relief hit him so hard it almost made him dizzy. You're okay, Harry said quickly, not sure if he was lying, but needing to say it anyway. You're okay, Ginny. I've got you. Ginny blinked slowly, confusion knitting her brow. I don't. Later, Harry said firmly, and gently slid an arm behind her shoulders. We're leaving. He glanced at the basilisk. The creature watched Ginny with ancient detachment. Not hunger, not interest, just awareness. Harry spoke in Parseltongue low. We need a way out that doesn't involve anyone seeing a girl carried out of a forbidden chamber at 3 in the morning. The basilisk's tongue flicked. Tunnels. Harry's scar tingled. The basilisk shifted its huge body, sliding toward the far wall where pipes disappeared into darkness. It pressed its head against a section of stone. Something clicked. A hidden passage opened, narrow, steep, and dark. Harry stared. The basilisk's voice brushed his mind, almost matter-of-fact. I have lived under your world for a long time. Harry swallowed. Right, he breathed. He lifted Ginny carefully. She was light, too light, and clung weakly to his robe. They moved into the tunnel. As they walked, Harry felt the chamber's pressure loosen behind him, like the place had relaxed now that Tom was gone. The further they went, the more Harry felt the cost of what he'd done. His head throbbed, not scar pain, something deeper, a fatigue that felt like he'd been holding up a ceiling and only just set it down. Rule of price. He'd forced dominion into place. He'd made the chamber obey. And it had obeyed. But it had taken something from him. Not life, not blood. Something quieter. A sliver of softness. A piece of the part of him that used to hesitate. Harry clenched his jaw and kept going. They emerged in a disused maintenance corridor near the lower floors, behind a tapestry Harry vaguely recognized. The air here smelled cleaner, less ancient. Ginny's breathing was steadier now, but she was shaking. Harry pulled his cloak tighter around her shoulders and whispered, "Can you walk?" She tried and stumbled. Harry caught her easily. "It's okay," he murmured. "Lean on me." They moved through the castle, and Harry noticed it again. Doors that should have creaked opened quietly. Staircases shifted into place before he reached them. A suit of armor turned its head away from them as if it hadn't seen anything. The castle was helping. Harry's stomach tightened. He should have been grateful. Instead, he felt the first real flicker of dread. Because Hogwarts didn't help like this for everyone. It helped like this for someone it recognized. Someone it had been built to obey. Harry reached the hospital wing without being stopped once. Madame Pomfrey nearly screamed when she saw Ginny. Then she shouted at Harry. Then she conjured a stretcher and started barking orders and muttering about reckless children and terrible headmasters and the absolute state of this school. Harry barely heard her. He stood there, watching Ginny being tucked in a bed, blankets pulled up, a warming charm laid across her chest. Ginny's eyes found his again. They were frightened, but alive. "Harry," she whispered again, like she was afraid he'd vanish. "I'm here," Harry said. Madame Pomfrey rounded on him. "And you, Mr. Potter, will sit down and tell me exactly what." Footsteps sounded outside. Slow, unhurried. Harry turned. Dumbledore entered the hospital wing as if he'd always been standing just outside the door, waiting for the right moment to step in. His blue eyes swept over Ginny, then Pomfrey, then settled on Harry. And Harry felt it, like a delicate pressure against his mind. Not force, not intrusion. A gentle test, like a finger-tapping glass to see if it would crack. Harry's scar warmed. Behind his ribs, the mantle of authority he'd touched in the chamber shifted like a cloak being adjusted. Dumbledore's gaze sharpened, almost imperceptibly. He saw something. Harry didn't know what exactly. But Harry knew this with cold certainty. Dumbledore understood that something had changed, and Dumbledore would not ignore it. Dumbledore spoke softly. Harry. Harry held his gaze. Professor. Dumbledore's eyes flicked, just once, to Harry's forehead. To the scar. Then back. I think, Dumbledore said gently, we should talk. Harry felt the hospital wings, air, tighten the same way the chambers had. Subtle, controlled. Not dominance. Not yet. But the beginning of a chess game. Harry nodded. Okay, he said. And somewhere far below, deep in the dark where no one looked, a basilisk settled back into ancient tunnels. No longer a mindless weapon, but something that now had a pact. And a name to answer. Dumbledore didn't lead Harry to his office. Not yet. He led him into a small side room off the hospital wing. One of those odd, half-forgotten spaces Hogwarts had everywhere, like the castle itself, like keeping secrets in its pockets. There was a single chair, a small table, and a window that looked out into darkness. Dumbledore closed the door gently behind them. Harry stayed standing. Not out of disrespect. Out of instinct. Because the moment the latch clicked, Harry felt it again. That soft pressure in the air, the way rooms seemed to become aware of him. It wasn't loud. It wasn't a spell. It was dominion. And it made Harry very conscious that if he sat, he was choosing to sit. If he stood, he was choosing to stand. He wasn't being placed. Dumbledore watched him for a long moment, blue eyes calm and careful. Then he spoke in a voice so gentle it felt like it was meant to disarm. Is Miss Weasley safe? Harry nodded once. Madame Pomfrey says she'll be fine. I am relieved, Dumbledore said sincerely, and Harry believed him. Then the headmaster's gaze sharpened, just a fraction. How did you save her? Harry's scar warmed. The black book wasn't in his cloak now. He'd hidden it before coming back into the hospital wing. But even without it, Harry could feel something inside him responding to the question, like a lock turning. He kept his face blank. I destroyed the diary, he said. Dumbledore's eyebrows rose slightly. The diary. Harry nodded. Tom Riddle's diary. A silence followed, heavy with the kind of meaning adults carried in their pockets. Dumbledore's voice remained calm, but a single word landed like a stone. Tom. Harry's stomach tightened. He didn't say Voldemort. He didn't say you-know-who. He said Tom, like he was testing whether Harry understood what he'd just claimed. Harry met his gaze. He called himself Tom Marvolo Riddle. Dumbledore's eyes flickered, just once, to Harry's scar. Then back. And how? Dumbledore asked softly, did you destroy it? Harry could have lied. He could have said, I stabbed it with a basilisk fong, and it would have fit the story people expected. But there was a difference between lying and building a trap for yourself. Harry chose something colder. He chose truth with missing pieces. I used venom, Harry said. Dumbledore's gaze sharpened. Venom. Harry nodded again. Dumbledore didn't press immediately. He turned his head slightly, looking at the window as if he were thinking about something far away. Then, quietly, that suggests you had access to the basilisk. Harry didn't flinch. Yes, he said. A pause. And the basilisk is? Harry's scar pulsed. Not pain, not warning. A kind of ownership that made his jaw tighten. He kept his voice steady. It retreated. Dumbledore looked back at him. Retreated. Harry's expression didn't change. It came out. It didn't like Tom anymore. It went back into the tunnels. That was true. Just not complete. Dumbledore's eyes studied Harry's face the way a chess player studied a board after an unexpected move. Did you kill it? Dumbledore asked. Harry held the gaze. No, he said. Dumbledore's expression, his carefully calm expression, shifted in the smallest way. Not shock. Not anger. Recognition. like a man realizing he was no longer speaking to a child who could be guided with gentle hands. "Why?" Dumbledore asked. Harry could have said, "Because I couldn't." He could have said, "Because it wasn't trying to kill me anymore." He could have said, "Because it deserved a chance." All true, but Harry felt something inside him harden around the simplest truth. "Because I didn't need to," Harry said. The air in the room seemed to tighten, subtle as a drawn thread. Dumbledore watched him very still. Then he asked, even more gently, "What did it do when you spoke to it?" Harry's scar warmed. The castle's old stones seemed to listen outside the room like they were curious too. Harry's mouth went dry. This was the edge of the cliff. The place where he could either step back into being a boy who survived a monster, or step forward into being a boy who made a monster choose. He chose the safer version. "It listened," Harry said. Dumbledore's eyes narrowed slightly. "Listen." Harry nodded. "I told it to stop." Dumbledore's voice remained soft, but the words carried weight. "Harry, did it obey you?" Harry stared at the headmaster. He felt that pressure again, like the room was waiting to see if he would lie. And Harry realized something. Dumbledore wasn't asking because he wanted to punish him. He was asking because he was trying to understand what had just woken up in a boy who should, by all normal rules, be dead twice over. Harry didn't lie. He just didn't surrender the whole truth. "Yes," Harry said simply. It obeyed. Dumbledore exhaled slowly. Then, after a pause that felt like the world holding its breath, he said, "There are kinds of magic older than the spells we teach in classrooms." Harry's scar pulsed. Dumbledore continued, tone careful. "Magic that binds itself to intent, to authority, to," his eyes lingered on Harry's face, "to lineage." Harry's hands clenched at his sides. Dumbledore leaned slightly forward. "Harry, I need you to understand something. Power that answers to fear will always ask you to feed it, again and again, until you become someone who only understands fear." Harry's throat tightened. "You think I wanted this?" Harry asked before he could stop himself. Dumbledore's gaze softened. "No," he said honestly, "I do not." Harry's voice came out sharp anyway, because it had been sharp for years, and he was tired of filing it down. "Then don't talk to me like I'm trying to be him," Harry said. Dumbledore didn't flinch. "I am not accusing you," he said. "I am warning you." Harry held his gaze. "I saved her." "I know," Dumbledore said, and there was real weight in those two words. Then Dumbledore's eyes glinted with something that wasn't quite warmth. "But you also made a choice," he said quietly. "A choice to spare the Basilisk." Harry didn't answer. Dumbledore's fingers tapped once against the side of the chair, thoughtful. "Will you tell me where it is?" Dumbledore asked. Harry's scar warmed, not hot, just firm. The answer rose in him like stone rising out of water. "Mine." Harry's jaw tightened. "No." For a moment, there was absolute stillness. Then Dumbledore nodded. "Very well," he said softly. Harry blinked, thrown off balance by the lack of anger. Dumbledore's voice stayed calm. "I will not force you. Not tonight." Harry's stomach tightened anyway. "You could." Dumbledore's gaze met his. "Could I?" he asked, mild as a question, but there was something behind it. A test. Harry felt that gentle pressure against his mind again. Not a shove, a touch. Harry's scar warmed. And something inside Harry, something cold and steady, rose up like a wall. The pressure slid off. Dumbledore's eyes widened, only slightly, then smoothed again. Harry realized what had just happened. Dumbledore had tried to look. Not invade. Not hurt. Just peek. And Harry's new power had said, no. Dumbledore watched him with a kind of careful respect that made Harry's skin prickle. Then he spoke very softly. "You are changing," Dumbledore said. Harry swallowed. "So is the world." Dumbledore's mouth tightened briefly. Almost a smile, but not quite. "Indeed," he murmured. Then he stood. Get some rest. You have earned it. Harry didn't move. Dumbledore paused at the door and glanced back. And Harry, he said. Harry met his eyes. Dumbledore's voice was gentle again, almost sad. Do not make the mistake of believing that being obeyed is the same as being followed. Then he left. The door clicked shut. Harry remained standing for a long moment, alone in the small room, heart thudding. Obeyed. Followed. He didn't know why those words bothered him more than the warnings about fear. He left the room a minute later and returned to the hospital wing. Ginny slept, color slowly returning to her cheeks. Madame Pomfrey tried to glare him into a chair, but Harry slipped away while she was distracted by a visiting professor. Outside, Hermione and Ron were waiting. Hermione's hair was messier than usual, her eyes bright with sleeplessness and questions. Ron looked exhausted and suspicious. Where have you been? Ron demanded. Dumbledore, Harry said. Ron's face tightened, and Harry shrugged. He wanted to know what happened. Hermione stepped closer, gaze piercing. And what did you tell him? Harry held her stare. The truth, he said. Hermione's eyes narrowed. All of it. Harry didn't answer. That was answer enough. Ron made a frustrated sound. Harry, what is going on? Everyone's saying you fought some giant snake again, but he swallowed, voice dropping, but they also keep whispering about you like you're something else. Harry's scar warmed. He felt the urge to tell them everything, to let the truth out, to share the weight, to stop carrying it alone. But the memory of the Basilisk's eye, ancient, hungry, bound by pact, rose in his mind like a warning. This wasn't a secret that could be half held. It was the kind of secret that turned friendships into targets. Harry looked at Ron and Hermione and made his choice. Ginny's alive, Harry said quietly. That's what matters. Ron's face twisted. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting tonight, Harry said. Hermione's expression hardened. But there was something else in her eyes, too. A flicker of understanding. Not approval. Not yet. But recognition that Harry's silence wasn't cruelty. It was calculation. Hermione stepped back. Fine, she said, stiff, but I'm not going to stop asking. Harry nodded. I know. Ron stared at him like he didn't recognize him anymore. Then Ron turned away, jaw clenched, and stalked off toward Gryffindor Tower without another word. Hermione lingered a moment. You're scaring him, she whispered. Harry's voice came out tired. I'm scaring everyone. Hermione's eyes softened, just a little. Are you scaring yourself? Harry didn't answer. Hermione left. Harry stood alone in the corridor until the torchlight stopped feeling like it was watching him. Then he went to retrieve the book. The storage room was exactly as he'd left it. The stone panel slid aside at his approach like it was happy to be useful. The black book waited, silent and patient. Harry picked it up and opened it. The page was blank at first. Then ink crawled across, forming letters like veins. You have opened the first door, the second is a room, the third is people. Harry's throat tightened. People. The ink continued. Kings do not survive alone, but they must choose who stands beside them, choose well. Find carefully. Harry stared at the words until his eyes stung. The book wasn't telling him to murder. It wasn't whispering about torture or curses. It was telling him something colder. Build. Harry swallowed. He closed the book and tucked it under his cloak. Then he went where no student was supposed to go at night. The kitchens. The entrance to the kitchens was quiet, but the moment Harry tickled the pear on the fruit painting, the door swung open like it was eager. Warm air rushed out, smelling of bread and spices. House elves bustled around, cleaning and stacking trays. The moment Harry stepped in, the room shifted. Dozens of elf heads turned toward him at once. And then, like a wave, many of them bowed. Deep. Too deep. Harry's stomach tightened. Harry started, uncomfortable. You don't have to. An older elf with enormous eyes and a towel over his shoulder hurried forward. Harry Potter is coming to kitchens, the elf squeaked, reverent as if saying a prayer. Harry Potter is great wizard. I'm not. Harry stopped himself. Correcting them wouldn't help. It never did. He chose a different approach. I need help, Harry said. The elves collectively inhaled. Anything, several squeaked at once. Harry's throat went tight. The book's words echoed, bind carefully. He would not take advantage of devotion. He would not build his power on slavery. He chose a simple, honest request. I need animals, Harry said quietly. Not pets, not anything that belongs to students. Just food. The elves blinked, confused, then nodded frantically as if it was the easiest request in the world. Food, one elf chirped. Yes, yes. Harry forced himself to say it plainly. For something living under the castle, he added. The kitchen went very still. The older elf's eyes widened until they looked like they might pop. Living under, the elf whispered. Harry's scar warmed steady. He didn't threaten. He didn't command. He offered. I will not hurt anyone here, Harry said quietly. But I need this to remain secret. If it becomes public, people will panic. People will die. Not because of the creature, because of what people do when they're afraid. The elves stared at him, and for a moment Harry felt like he was standing on the edge of something dangerous. Then the older elf bowed again, slow, solemn. Elves understand secrets, it whispered. Elves keep Hogwarts safe. Elves keep masters safe. Harry's jaw tightened at the word masters. He corrected it gently. Not masters, allies. The older elf blinked, then nodded as if learning a new shape for an old idea. Allies, the elf repeated, careful. Harry swallowed. Can you help, he asked. The elf bowed again. Yes. And then, from the far side of the kitchen, a familiar voice cut through the hush like a knife of joy. Harry Potter. A small figure burst forward, clothes mismatched, eyes enormous, ears flapping. Dobby. Free Dobby. He threw himself at Harry's legs like a cannonball of affection. Harry staggered. Dobby. Harry Potter, save Dobby. Dobby squeaked, clutching Harry like he might vanish. Harry's chest tightened unexpectedly. He crouched and awkwardly patted Dobby's shoulder. Hey, E. Dobby looked up at him with shining eyes, and then, somehow, his gaze sharpened. Dobby's ears drooped slightly. Harry Potter smells like old magic, Dobby whispered, suddenly serious. Harry's scar warmed. Harry forced a small smile. Yeah, Hogwarts has plenty of that. Dobby shook his head fiercely. Not Hogwarts magic. Harry Potter magic. Heavy magic. Like masters. Harry's stomach turned. He didn't want that word attached to him. Dobby, Harry said softly. I need help. Quiet help. Dobby's face lit up. Dobby helps. Harry hesitated, then decided. If he was going to build something, he needed people who chose him freely. Dobby was free. Dobby was loyal by choice. Can you bring food sometimes? Harry asked quietly, to a place under the castle. Dobby's eyes widened. Then Dobby grinned so hard it looked painful. Dobby brings food, he declared. Dobby brings biggest food. Harry quickly held up a hand. Not biggest, just enough. Quietly. Dobby nodded vigorously. Harry exhaled slowly. One ally. One secret channel. One step toward building something that wasn't just him and a monster in the dark. 2 nights later, Harry claimed his first room. Not with a spell. With a decision. It was an abandoned classroom on the 4th floor, dusty and used, no name on the door. Harry had found it the way he found so many things now, by feeling the castle's subtle pull, the quiet suggestion of here. He stepped inside, shut the door, and breathed. Then he spoke, not in English. In a language that wasn't just words, it was authority. This room is mine, Harry hissed. The air thickened. The dust settled. The torch outside the door dimmed, as if agreeing to keep the room hidden. Harry felt the weight settle into place behind his ribs. Stage 2, the book had said. A room. A domain. Harry turned to the half-dozen students waiting nervously in the shadows. Not Gryffindor only. Not just his friends. A Ravenclaw who'd been hexed for being annoying. A Hufflepuff whose brother had been threatened by older students. A Slytherin girl who looked like she hated being afraid of her own house. And Draco Malfoy, standing with his chin lifted like he'd decided fear was something he could refuse to show. Draco's eyes gleamed with something between fascination and greed. You said you could protect people, Draco drawled. Try to soundboard. Prove it. Harry stared at him. Then he spoke simply. I'm not here to prove anything, Harry said. If you want the old Hogwarts, leave. A couple of the students flinched like they expected Harry to be nice about it. Draco's lip curled. You're acting like you. Like I have a choice? Harry cut in quietly. Silence. Harry looked at the faces in the room. Fear. Hope. Desperation. The kind of emotions that made power easy to grab and easy to abuse. Harry felt the book's words in his mind. Bind carefully. He reached into his robe and pulled out a thin strip of parchment. Not a contract. Not a legal thing. A simple promise written in plain language. I won't force anyone, Harry said, voice calm. This isn't a cult. This isn't a gang. This is rules. Protection. No cruelty. Draco snorted. Harry ignored him. If you join, Harry continued, you agree to 3 things. He held up one finger. First, you don't hurt innocents. Not for fun. Not for revenge. Second finger. Second, you keep this secret. If you betray it, people will panic and try to burn it down. You'll be helping them. Third finger. Third, if someone here is attacked, you help. You don't turn away. The room was silent. Harry looked at each of them. I'm not asking for worship, he said. I'm asking for order. The word order landed heavy. Some of them swallowed. Draco's eyes glittered. And what do we get? Draco asked, voice sharp. Harry didn't hesitate. You get safety, Harry said, and you get a place where you're not alone. Then he added, quieter, truth cutting through. And you get a chance to stop waiting for adults who keep failing us. That did something to the room. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. But Harry felt it like a click. A shift. People recognizing a truth they'd been swallowing for years. Harry laid the parchment on a desk and placed his wand beside it. The oath is voluntary, he said. If you sign, it binds. Not in pain, not in death, just consequence. You'll feel it if you break it. You know what you did. Draco stared at the parchment like it had teeth. The Ravenclaw girl stepped forward first, hand shaking. She picked up the quill. Will it really stop them? She whispered. Harry met her eyes. It'll stop them, he said, or it'll make them regret trying. She swallowed and signed. The air in the room tightened for half a second, like the castle itself took note. Then it eased. The Hufflepuff boy signed next. Then the Slytherin girl, chin up, eyes fierce. Then, after a long pause, Draco Malfoy stepped forward. He didn't look at Harry as he signed. But the moment the ink dried, Draco flinched, just slightly, as if he'd felt something settle onto his skin like a cold ring. Draco's eyes snapped up, sharp. What was that? Harry's voice was calm. That, Harry said, was the room agreeing to remember. Draco swallowed, and Harry felt it, like threads forming quietly between him and the signatures on the parchment. Not control, not puppeteering. A network, a court, a beginning. Harry looked at the small group and spoke, voice low, steady, and certain. From now on, he said, if someone touches one of us, they answer to me. The room didn't cheer. This wasn't Gryffindor hero nonsense. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't loud. It was the kind of promise that made adults nervous. Harry felt the castle lean in slightly, like it approved of rules. Then the door creaked. Everyone froze. Harry turned and saw the torch in the corridor outside dim as a shadow passed. Not a student, not a teacher. Something moving with purpose. Harry's scar warmed sharply. And from deep below, through stone and pipe and ancient earth, the basilisk's voice slid into his mind like ice. Someone is in the tunnels. Not elf. Not rat. Wizard. Harry's blood went cold. Because only one kind of wizard went where they weren't supposed to. When they thought a monster was still alive. The basilisk's warning didn't feel like a sentence. It felt like a blade laid gently against Harry's spine. Someone is in the tunnels. Wizard. Harry stood in the abandoned classroom, his room now, with 6 sets of eyes staring at him, waiting for direction like they'd already decided he was the only person in Hogwarts who could do anything about anything. That was the first real danger of power. Not the curses, not the creatures. The way people started handing you responsibility like it was your natural shape. Harry forced his face to stay calm. He didn't look at the others yet. He spoke into the quiet space behind his ribs, into the thread of the pact. Where? He hissed silently in parcel tongue. The answer came back, slow and precise. Near old water. Near iron. Hunting smell. Metal. Spells. Someone was prepared. Not a lost professor with a lantern. Not Filch muttering about students. A hunter. Draco's voice cut into the silence. Potter, he asked, sharp and impatient. Why are you staring into space like that? Harry turned. The small group flinched at the look on his face, like they expected him to explode or announce a war. He didn't. He just said, someone's below the castle. The Ravenclaw girl, Penny, she'd finally introduced herself as, went pale. The tunnels. Harry nodded once. The Hufflepuff boy, Owen, swallowed hard. Like the chamber? Not the chamber, Harry said. The tunnels around it. The old ones. The Slytherin girl, Selwyn, stepped forward a fraction, eyes narrowing. Boo! Harry's scar warmed. He didn't know, and not knowing was unacceptable. He looked at the parchment on the desk, the oath sheet where signatures had dried into a quiet, living network. He could feel it now faintly. Threads of awareness, not thoughts, not control, just a subtle sense of where his people were and whether they were safe. He'd created a small, careful thing. Now he had to keep it from becoming a fire. We don't chase, Harry said firmly. Draco scoffed. We don't. Potter, if someone's down there, that means they're either stupid or dangerous. Dangerous, Harry said, because he trusted the basilisk's instincts more than Draco's mouth. Draco's eyes glittered. Then we should. No, Harry cut in. The single word landed heavy in the room, and everyone felt it, even Draco. Harry made himself breathe. This is exactly how people get killed. They get excited, they get scared, and they go looking for trouble in the dark. Penny whispered, Then what do we do? Harry's mind moved fast, cold, structured. He didn't want to be Voldemort. He didn't want to be Dumbledore either, kind and wise while children bled under his watch. He wanted something in between. Order. We act like a real defense, Harry said, voice low. Not a mob. He pointed at Owen. You, go to the common rooms. Listen, if anyone's missing, anyone, you tell me. Owen blinked. Me? Harry nodded. You're invisible in a good way. People talk around you. Owen straightened slightly, nerves turning into purpose. Okay. Harry pointed at Penny. You're Ravenclaw. You'll know where people go when they think they're clever. Check the library logs, the restricted section door, anything that shows someone's snooping. Penny nodded, quick and tense. Right. Harry turned to Selwyn. You know Slytherin rumors before anyone else. If someone has been bragging about handling the monster problem, you'll hear it. Selwyn's lips pressed into a thin line. Then she nodded once, sharply. I will. Harry looked at Draco last. Draco stood with his arms folded, face guarded, like he decided he wouldn't show fear even if it bit him. "Don't you dare tell me to fetch parchment," Draco snapped, preemptively offended. Harry's gaze didn't move. "Draco," Harry said quietly, "you're the only one here who might have a reason to know about secret visitors." The room went very still. Draco's eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" Harry didn't blink. "You're a Malfoy." Selwyn's attention sharpened instantly. Penny looked alarmed. Owen looked like he wanted to evaporate. Draco's jaw clenched. "Say it." Harry said it. "If someone is sneaking into Hogwarts to hunt something below the castle," Harry said softly, "that kind of person is either Ministry or someone rich enough to ignore the Ministry." Draco's face went pale in a way he couldn't hide. For half a second, Harry saw it, the truth behind Draco's pride. Not confidence. Training. A child raised to never look weak. Draco's voice came out tight. "My father isn't." Harry held up a hand. "I didn't say it's him. I said you might know the type." Draco swallowed, eyes darting. Then his chin lifted again, defensive. "Fine. What do you want?" Harry's scar warmed, steady. "Any names," Harry said. "Any contacts? Any handlers your family trusts with messy problems?" Draco's eyes flickered with anger, then fear, then calculation. "You're asking me to betray my family," Draco said. Harry's voice stayed calm. "I'm asking you to decide who you are in this room." Draco stared at him. Then, very quietly, Draco said, "Give me an hour." Harry nodded once. "Go." Draco turned sharply and walked out, robe snapping behind him like a flag. The door shut. The room breathed again. Penny whispered, "Is that wise?" Harry didn't answer immediately, because he didn't know. That was the second danger of power. You don't get certainty. You get consequences. Before he could speak, a soft knock came at the door. Everyone froze. Harry didn't reach for his wand. He didn't need to. The room was his. He said calmly, "Enter." The door opened. Professor McGonagall stood there, eyes sharp enough to cut glass. And behind her, Dumbledore. Harry's chest tightened. So this was it. The trap didn't look like a trap because Dumbledore never made traps that looked like snares. Dumbledore made traps that looked like kindness. McGonagall's gaze swept the students in the room. Ravenclaw, Hufflepuff, Slytherin, and her mouth tightened. "Mr. Potter," she said crisply, "explain why I'm finding you hosting late-night meetings with students from 3 houses." Harry's voice stayed level. "We're talking." McGonagall's nostrils flared. "At this hour." Dumbledore lifted a hand gently. "Minerva," he said mild, "may I speak with Harry alone?" McGonagall looked like she wanted to argue. Then she looked at Harry again, and her expression changed in the smallest way. Not disapproval. Worry. She nodded once. 5 minutes, she said sharply. The other students shifted, uneasy. Harry glanced at them. "Go," Harry said quietly. "Do what I told you." Penny nodded and hurried out. Owen followed. Selwyn lingered a moment, gaze locked on Dumbledore with a Slytherin suspicion. Then she left too. The door closed. McGonagall remained just outside, a silent threat in tartan. Dumbledore stepped into the room and looked around like he was taking in a painting. "A clever choice of meeting place," he said mildly. Harry didn't respond. Dumbledore's blue eyes settled on Harry. "I will be direct, Harry." Harry's scar warmed. Dumbledore's voice softened. "Someone has been moving through the lower parts of the castle tonight." Harry's stomach clenched. So Dumbledore knew. The Basilisk had been right. Harry kept his face calm. "Yes." Dumbledore studied him. "How did you know?" Harry didn't answer. Dumbledore's gaze flicked, very briefly, to the door, then back. "Someone is hunting," Dumbledore said quietly. "Not a student, not a teacher." Harry's fingers twitched at his sides. Dumbledore continued, gentle as a knife sliding between ribs. They are hunting the basilisk. Harry didn't flinch, but the room did. It was subtle, a tightening, a deepening of the air, like the walls didn't like that word on Dumbledore's tongue. Dumbledore noticed. His eyes sharpened slightly. Then he smiled faintly, almost sad. "You see," Dumbledore murmured, "this is what worries me. Hogwarts reacts to you now, not in ordinary ways." Harry's scar warmed hotter. Dumbledore lifted a hand. "Harry, listen to me. I am not here to punish you." Harry's voice came out flat. "You said that last time." "And it was true then," Dumbledore said calmly. "It is true now." Harry stared at him, unblinking. Dumbledore's expression softened. "The Ministry believes the Basilisk is dead," he said. "If they discover it lives, their response will be blunt." Harry knew what that meant. Worse. Extermination. Collateral damage shrugged off because monsters don't deserve mercy. Dumbledore leaned forward slightly. "I'm offering you something," he said. Harry's scar pulsed. Here it came. The moral trap. Dumbledore spoke softly. "Tell me where it is. I will not harm it. I will not allow the Ministry to harm it. We will relocate it." Harry's jaw tightened. "Relocate." Dumbledore nodded. "To a place where it cannot frighten children. Where it cannot be used as a weapon." Harry's scar warmed, steady and stubborn. Harry heard the basilisk's voice in his mind like a low growl. "Cages. Harry med Dumbledorish geish." "You're asking me to put back in chains," Harry said quietly. Dumbledore's eyes held steady. "I am asking you to remove a loaded blade from a school full of children." Harry's voice sharpened. "And put it where?" Dumbledore didn't answer immediately. That was the trap, the silence that forced you to fill in the blanks. Harry didn't. He stayed silent too. Finally, Dumbledore said, "There are sanctuaries. Protected places." Harry shook his head once. "Like Azkaban is a sanctuary." Dumbledore's eyes narrowed slightly. Not angry, just pained. "Harry," Dumbledore said softly, "you assume I mean prison." "I do not." "Then say where," Harry said. Dumbledore paused. Then, very calmly, he asked, "Do you trust me?" Harry's scar warmed hotter. That was the real trap. A question that wasn't about the basilisk at all. A question about surrender. Harry thought of the Dursleys, thought of adults who smiled while they controlled, thought of the way Dumbledore had left him on a doorstep like a parcel. He didn't hate Dumbledore, but he didn't trust him with monsters, or with power, or with Harry's choices. "No," Harry said simply. Dumbledore exhaled. He didn't look offended. He looked like he'd expected it. Then he nodded slowly. "Very well," Dumbledore said. "Then perhaps you will accept a different offer." Harry didn't respond. Dumbledore's voice remained gentle. "I will give you legitimacy," Dumbledore said quietly. "A formal role, a structured responsibility. You can help me protect this school, openly." Harry stared. "You want me as a what?" "A prefect." Dumbledore smiled faintly. "Something more fitting than a badge, I think." Harry's scar warmed. The room tightened. Dumbledore continued. "You clearly possess a kind of authority magic," he said. "If we channel it into rules and oversight, if we anchor it in accountability, you will be less alone with it." Harry's mouth went dry. That sounded reasonable. That was why it was dangerous. Dumbledore leaned in slightly. "But," he said softly, "I would need transparency. If you're to help me protect Hogwarts, I must know what tools you are using." There it was. Legitimacy in exchange for surrender. A velvet collar. Harry's voice came out low. "So you want me to hand you the leash?" Dumbledore's eyes held his. "I want you to not become a boy who believes the only way to keep people safe is to hold a monster under the floor." Harry felt something cold in his chest. "You think I'm a threat," Harry said. Dumbledore's gaze softened. "I think you are a boy who has been treated as a weapon by too many people," he said quietly. "And I fear what happens when weapons learn they can choose." Harry's scar pulsed. The room pressed down like it was listening. Harry said, carefully, "And if I say no?" Dumbledore didn't hesitate. "Then I will still do everything in my power to keep you safe," Dumbledore said. "And I will still do everything in my power to keep the school safe." Harry's eyes narrowed. "Even if that means stopping me." Dumbledore's expression didn't change. "If you endanger children," Dumbledore said softly, "yes." Harry held his gaze. Then he asked the question that mattered. "Did you come here to negotiate?" Harry said quietly. "Or to test me?" Dumbledore's eyes flickered. "Just once." That was answer enough. Harry felt the anger rise, hot and sharp, because he hated being tested like a creature in a cage. He forced it down. "Control." He spoke carefully. "You don't get to set traps for me and call it guidance," Harry said. Dumbledore's voice remained calm. "And you do not get to build a private court in the shadows and call it protection." Harry's scar warmed. So Dumbledore had noticed. Harry kept his face still. "It's not a court." Dumbledore's smile was thin. "Then what is it?" Harry didn't answer. Dumbledore watched him for a long moment. Then he said softly, "This is my trap, Harry." Harry's stomach tightened. Dumbledore continued, voice gentle. "If you tell me where the basilisk is, I can protect it and you. If you refuse, then you're choosing secrecy. And secrecy, however noble it feels, always grows teeth." Harry stared. Dumbledore's gaze was kind, but steel-backed. "I will not force you," Dumbledore said, "but I will watch. Closely." Then Dumbledore stepped back. "Be careful," he said quietly, "because the person hunting below the castle does not share my restraint." He turned toward the door, then paused and looked back at Harry. "And Harry," he said. Harry's scar warmed. Dumbledore's voice softened into something almost personal. "Power that makes a room obey you," Dumbledore murmured, "will eventually ask whether people should obey you too." Then he left. The door closed. Harry stood alone in the room, heart thudding, feeling like he'd just wrestled with smoke and still come away bruised. McGonagall's voice snapped from outside. "Mr. Potter, 10 points from Gryffindor for whatever this is." Harry didn't even react. Points felt like toy money now. The first real test came an hour later. Owen returned, breathless, slipping into the room like a frightened rabbit. "Harry," he whispered, voice shaking. "They've got him." Harry's scar went cold. "Who?" Harry asked. Owen swallowed. "A first year. A Hufflepuff. He's been telling people his brother joined your group." And some older Slytherins dragged him toward the trophy room. Harry felt something inside him snap into place. Not rage. Decision. He stood. Owen flinched like he expected Harry to explode. Harry didn't. He spoke calmly, and that calmness was more frightening than shouting. "Bring Penny," Harry said. "Bring Selwyn." Quietly. No drama. Owen nodded and ran. Harry moved through corridors that shifted subtly to make his path smoother, stairs sliding into place, torches dimming as he passed. He didn't have time to wonder if that was good or bad. He found Penny first, then Selwyn. Selwyn's eyes were sharp, expression tight, with barely contained fury. "Slytherins," she muttered. "Idiots." Penny's voice was small. "We should tell a professor." Harry looked at her. By the time a professor arrives, the first year learns the lesson they want him to learn. Penny swallowed. "And what lesson is that?" Harry's voice was flat. "That safety has a price," he said. They rounded a corner, and Draco stepped out of a shadow, as if he'd been waiting for Harry. His face was pale. His eyes were too bright. He didn't say anything at first. He just looked at Harry like he was seeing him for the first time. Then he said, in a voice that was too controlled, "My father's in the castle." The corridor went silent. Penny's eyes widened. Selwyn's mouth tightened. Harry's scar warmed, like it approved of the confirmation. Draco's voice went lower. He's not alone. Harry nodded once. That's why someone's in the tunnels. Draco's jaw clenched. He's hunting Potter. He thinks the basilisk is a loose end. Harry's expression didn't change. Draco's eyes flicked away, then back, something raw beneath his pride. If he finds it, Draco whispered, he'll. He won't, Harry said. Draco's mouth twisted. How do you know? Harry leaned in slightly, voice quiet enough that only Draco could hear. Because it's not helpless anymore, Harry said. Draco swallowed. Then Draco's gaze sharpened into something dangerous. Let me handle the Slytherins, Draco said quickly. If they're taking a Hufflepuff first year, that's stupid. That will make noise. My father hates noise. Harry looked at him. Draco's eagerness was a blade too. A blade that wanted to cut. Draco, Harry said quietly, what do you want? Draco's lips parted, then closed. His voice came out tight. I want them to stop making us look weak. Harry's scar warmed. Harry nodded once. Then we do it clean. They moved. The trophy room corridors were dim and cold, the air smelling faintly of polish and old stone. The farther they went, the quieter it became, like Hogwarts itself didn't like what was about to happen. They heard the voices before they saw anyone. Older boys, 3rd and 4th years, laughing. A small, choke sound, the first year, try not to cry. Then a hissed threat, say it. Say Potter's your master. Harry's chest tightened. He stepped into the corridor entrance. There they were. 3 Slytherin boys had a smaller Hufflepuff pressed against the wall, wand tips at his throat. The Hufflepuff's face was wet, eyes wide with terror. Draco's voice snapped like a whip. What do you think you're doing? The 3 Slytherins spun. One of them sneered. Malfoy, this isn't your problem. Draco stepped forward, chin lifted. Everything in this castle is my problem tonight. The boy laughed. Is that what Potter told you to say? Penny flinched. Selwyn's eyes narrowed. Dangerous. The Slytherin boy's gaze slid to Harry. His sneer faltered slightly. Because Harry wasn't smiling. Harry wasn't angry either. He just looked certain. Let him go, Harry said quietly. One boy snorted. Or what? Harry's scar warmed. He felt the castle behind him like a vast, listening animal. He didn't draw his wand. He didn't need a spell. He spoke one word in parcel tongue, soft, almost inaudible. Mine. The corridor tightened. Not physically, not a visible force. But the air changed. The torches dimmed. The Slytherins shifted, suddenly uncomfortable, as if their bodies were remembering something older than themselves, that there were places in Hogwarts where certain bloodlines had authority. The boy holding the Hufflepuff swallowed. What did you do? Harry walked forward, slow and unhurried. I didn't do anything to you, Harry said calmly. I did something to the space you're standing in. The boy tried to laugh, but it came out thin. This is insane, he snapped. You can't. Harry's voice stayed quiet. Drop your wand, Harry said. The boy's hand twitched. And then, without him meaning to, his wand clattered to the stone floor. His eyes went wide with horror. The second boy tried to raise his wand. It jerked in his grip like it didn't want to. The third boy backed up, suddenly pale. Selwyn's voice cut in, low and vicious. You're embarrassing. The Hufflepuff first year slid down the wall, shaking. Penny hurried to him, whispering, It's okay, it's okay. Draco's gaze was locked on Harry, breath shallow. Harry looked at the 3 boys. Here are your choices, Harry said. You apologize, you leave, and you stop using first years to prove you're not cowards. One boy spat on the floor. Or what? Harry's scar warmed. He felt the basilisk's presence far below, a sleeping storm. He could end this with fear. With one whispered command, he could make these boys unable to lift wands near the Hufflepuff ever again. He could carve the lesson into their nerves. And for a heartbeat, he wanted to. That was the third danger of power. How easy it became to justify cruelty as prevention. Harry forced his voice to stay controlled. "Or you break your oath," Harry said. The boys blinked. "Oath," one repeated, confused. Harry's gaze slid to Draco. Draco's lips curled, triumphant and cruel. "They signed," Draco said, and there was a poisonous delight in it. "They signed because they thought it would make them untouchable." Harry's stomach tightened. So this was it. Draco's test. He'd found a loophole, boys who'd joined Harry's network to exploit it. Harry looked back at the Slytherins. "Did you sign my rules?" Harry asked calmly. Silence. Then, reluctantly, the first boy muttered, "Yeah." Harry nodded once. "Then you broke them," Harry said. The air in the corridor shifted. All three boys flinched as if something cold brushed their skin. Their eyes darted, panicked. "What is that?" one demanded. Harry's voice stayed calm. "Consequence," he said. The three boys' hands trembled. Not pain, not torture, just a sudden, sickening certainty settling into them, like their own magic had turned and looked at what they'd done and decided it didn't approve. One boy staggered back, pale. "Make it stop." Harry didn't smile. "You stop," he said, and he meant in both directions. He stepped closer and looked them in the eyes. "This is your warning," Harry said quietly. "You do not touch children to make yourself feel big. If you do it again, the consequence won't be discomfort." The boys swallowed hard. What will it be?" Harry's scar warmed. He could have said anything. He could have promised nightmares, paralysis, humiliation. He didn't. He chose control. "You won't be able to lie to yourself about what you are," Harry said softly. "And that will be worse than any hex." The boys stared at him like he was something they didn't have a name for. Harry stepped aside and nodded toward the corridor behind them. "Go," he said. They didn't run. They left, stiff and shaken, like they'd been forced to see their own reflection. When they were gone, Penny helped the Hufflepuff boy to his feet. Selwyn muttered curses under her breath. Draco stood very still. Then Draco said quietly, "That was it." Harry looked at him. "That was it." Draco's eyes narrowed. "You could have ruined them." Harry's voice came out flat. "I'm not building a kingdom out of broken children." Draco stared at him, and Harry saw the conflict in his face, pride and fear and something like disappointment. Then Draco swallowed hard and nodded, once, as if he was learning the rules of a game he'd never been taught existed. Harry didn't have time to breathe afterward, because the moment they returned to Harry's room, Penny's eyes wide with adrenaline, Owen shaky but relieved. The Basilisk's voice slid into Harry's mind like a cold knife. "The wizard is closer. He is light that doesn't burn, that he carries mirrors." Harry's blood went colder. Mirrors. A hunter prepared for a basilisk gaze. Harry looked at the others. "We're done for tonight," Harry said sharply. Penny blinked. "What?" "Go to bed," Harry said. "All of you." Selwyn opened her mouth. Harry cut her off, voice low. "This is not a vote." They hesitated. Then they obeyed. That word hit Harry like a bruise. Obeyed. Dumbledore's warning echoed in his head. Power will ask whether people should obey you too. Harry swallowed it down and turned away before it could dig in. When they'd left, Harry shut the door and stood alone in the room. He closed his eyes and reached downward through the packed thread. "Show me," he whispered in parcel tongue. The basilisk's perception rose in him like a dark tide. For a moment, Harry saw stone tunnels, vit walls, old iron pipes, the sheen of water, the slow, silent movement of something enormous in the dark. And then, light. Not torchlight. A pale, controlled glow that didn't flicker. A wizard moving carefully, wearing gloves and protective layers. And in his hand, mirrors. Small reflective plates arranged like a fan, so he could see without being seen. The hunter paused at a fork in the tunnel. He murmured an incantation under his breath. Harry felt the spell ripple through the stone like a probing finger. Searching. Hunting. Then the hunter spoke very softly, and the voice filtered through Harry's borrowed sight. "I know you're here," the hunter whispered. "Come out, beast." Harry's stomach tightened. Then another voice answered, faint, distant, deeper. Not the hunter. Not the basilisk. A third voice, drifting from a shadowed corridor. Smooth. Aristocratic. Laughing quietly. "Careful," the second voice murmured. "You don't want to damage it. Basilisk parts are valuable." Harry's blood turned to ice. He didn't recognize the face. He couldn't see the speaker clearly through the basilisk's angle. But he recognized the tone. He'd heard it at Flourish and Blots. Cold silk wrapped around threats. Lucius Malfoy. Harry opened his eyes, breathing hard. So Draco's fear had been real. Lucius was in Hogwarts. And he wasn't here to help anyone. Harry's scar burned. He thought of Ginny, of the diary, of how close they'd all come to dying because Lucius wanted chaos. Harry's hands clenched. He didn't want to kill Lucius Malfoy. He wanted to stop him. He moved to the door, then stopped. Because going alone into tunnels with a basilisk and a hunter wasn't brave. It was stupid. Harry forced himself to think like the person he was becoming. He needed to separate threats. He needed to control the field. He needed order. Harry took a slow breath and spoke into the pack thread, voice low, absolute. "Do not kill," Harry commanded. "Do not reveal yourself fully. Shadow them. Lead them where the stone narrows, where mirrors won't help." The basilisk's displeasure rolled through him like thunder. "Hunters, they deserve." "No," Harry said, and the word was iron. "They don't get to make us monsters." A long pause. Then the basilisk's voice returned, cold and obedient by choice. "As you command." Harry's scar warmed, steady. He pulled his cloak tighter around his shoulders and stepped out into the corridor. Not toward the tunnels. Toward the one person in Hogwarts who could match Lucius Malfoy in a battle of politics and power. How they walked fast, silent, purposeful. And the castle, sensing his intent, shifted staircases into place like stepping stones. He reached the gargoyle guarding the headmaster's office. He didn't know the password. He'd never been invited. But he felt the castle's attention on him like a hell breath. Harry looked at the gargoyle and spoke softly, not in English. In the language of claim. "Open." The gargoyle didn't move. Harry's scar warmed hotter. Harry leaned in, voice low and deadly calm. "He is in my castle," Harry hissed, "and you will not make me beg to protect it." For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the stone gargoyle blinked. Actually blinked. And stepped aside. The spiral staircase rose. Harry stared at it, shocked, a little sick. Then he stepped on. Because there was no time for guilt. Not tonight. The stairs carried him upward like the castle itself had decided. This is urgent. At the top, the door to the headmaster's office opened before Harry could knock. Dumbledore stood inside, waiting, robes neat, eyes calm, as if he'd known exactly when Harry would arrive. Like the whole conversation earlier had been a setup for this moment. Dumbledore's voice was gentle. "Harry," he said, "I wondered how long it would take." Harry's scar burned. He stepped inside and shut the door behind him. "I know who's in the tunnels," Harry said, voice tight. Dumbledore's eyes sharpened. Harry met his gaze. "It's Lucius Malfoy," Harry said. And for the first time, Dumbledore's calm slipped, just slightly, into something colder. Then, Dumbledore said softly, "We have a problem." Harry's voice came out like steel. "No," Harry said. "We have too." Because far below them, in tunnels wet with old water and iron, the basilisk was moving silently through darkness, guiding hunters into a place where mirrors wouldn't save them. and Harry had to decide, right now, whether he would let Dumbledore take control or whether he would reveal how much control Harry already had. Dumbledore didn't sit. He stood behind his desk like it was a shoreline and the tide had just started doing something unfamiliar. Harry stood opposite him, cloak still on, eyes steady, scar burning like a coal that had decided it was done being quiet. Lucius Malfoy, Dumbledore repeated softly, as if saying the name out loud made it more real. In the tunnels. Harry nodded once. With a hunter, mirrors, spells. They're tracking. Dumbledore's gaze sharpened. How do you know where they are? Harry didn't blink. Does it matter? A pause, thin, careful. Dumbledore studied him for a heartbeat too long. Then he said, in the same gentle voice he used when he was about to do something decisive, yes. Harry's jaw tightened. Dumbledore's eyes stayed kind, but there was steel behind them now. Because if I am to stop Lucius Malfoy from unleashing panic inside this castle, I must understand what I am working with. Harry could have lied. He could have said he'd overheard, or found footprints, or followed a rumor. But Dumbledore had already been testing him for hours. He wasn't asking for a story. He was asking for a confession. Harry made a choice. Not surrender. Not defiance. A third thing. Something under the castle warned me, Harry said. Dumbledore's eyebrows rose slightly. Something. Harry held his gaze. Not a ghost. Not a portrait. Dumbledore's eyes flicked, just once, to Harry's scar. Then back. Dumbledore nodded slowly, as if filing the information into a place he would not name yet. All right, he said quietly. Then we move. Harry's breath caught. You're coming. Dumbledore's mouth tightened faintly. I did not allow Lucius Malfoy to hunt anything in my school, he said, calm as stone. Especially not something that could kill children if provoked. Harry's scar warmed hotter at that. Good, Harry said, and the word came out sharp before he could soften it. Dumbledore's gaze lingered on Harry, and for a moment his voice lost a fraction of its gentleness. Harry, he said, I want your word. Harry's fingers twitched. On what? Dumbledore's eyes were very clear. That you will not use your authority to force the castle against human beings tonight. Harry felt anger flare. You think I'm going to crush him, Harry snapped, because I can? Dumbledore didn't flinch. I think, Dumbledore said softly, that you are a boy who has been forced to survive without protection, and boys like that learn shortcuts. Harry's scar burned. A shortcut will be so easy. A door sealed. A corridor locked, a hunter's wand falling from numb fingers. And Lucius Malfoy. Harry swallowed. He forced the fury down. Control. I won't kill him, Harry said. Dumbledore's gaze didn't shift. That is not what I asked. Harry's jaw clenched. Then he said, slower, more careful. I won't make the castle hurt him. Dumbledore's eyes narrowed slightly. And restrain. Harry stared. Restrain. That word was a blade. It cut both ways. He thought of Ginny, thought of the diary, thought of Lucius's lazy smile in flourish and blots. He thought of the hunter's mirrors. No, Harry said finally. I won't restrain him with the castle. Dumbledore held the gaze a moment longer, then nodded. Very well, he said. Then let us do this the hard way. He lifted his wand. And the office responded. Not like it did for Harry. No bowing torches, no subtle obedience, but like an old friend answering a call. Fawkes appeared on his perch in a burst of warm light, feathers glowing softly. Harry felt his scar twinge at the Phoenix's presence. Ancient magic meeting ancient magic and not liking the taste. Dumbledore turned toward the door. Minerva, he called. McGonagall's sharp voice came instantly from the corridor, like she'd been standing there the whole time. Yes. Bring your wand, Dumbledore said calmly, and bring Severus. A brief silence. Then McGonagall tight, now. Now, Dumbledore replied. Harry's stomach dropped. Snape. Of course. Because if there was one person who would recognize Dark Lord resonance like a scent, it was Severus Snape. Harry forced himself not to show anything. Dumbledore looked at Harry again. "Stay close," he said gently, "and do not run ahead." Harry's smile was thin. "I won't. I'm not 12. Dumbledore's eyes softened in a way that wasn't amused. "That," Dumbledore said quietly, "is precisely my concern. They didn't go through corridors. They went through Hogwarts." That was the only way Harry could describe it. Hidden doors opened at Dumbledore's touch. A tapestry lifted itself aside. A stairwell spiraled down where a broom cupboard had been 5 minutes ago. The castle was old, secretive, layered with pathways no student ever learned unless Hogwarts decided they deserved it. Harry walked beside Dumbledore, feeling the stone breathe. And he could still feel the difference. Hogwarts liked Dumbledore. But Hogwarts answered Harry. Like the castle's loyalty and Harry's authority were not the same thing, and both were dangerous. McGonagall arrived with her wand held like a threat. Snape arrived with his robe sweeping behind him like a shadow that wanted to swallow light. Snape's eyes landed on Harry and stayed there. A flicker of something passed over Snape's face, too quick to read, but Harry felt it like a cold hand on his scar. Recognition. Not of Harry's face. Of something inside him. Snape's voice was silk-dipped in poison. "Potter." Harry didn't respond. Dumbledore didn't let it linger. Below the castle, Dumbledore said, "Unauthorized intrusion. Potential threat." McGonagall's eyes flashed. "Who?" Dumbledore glanced at Harry just once. "Lucius Malfoy," Dumbledore said. McGonagall went very still. Snape's expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened like knives. "Of course," Snape murmured. Harry's stomach tightened. They reached a sealed stone door deep below the dungeons, something that looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. Dumbledore placed a hand on the stone, whispered an incantation, and the door softened like wax. Cold air breathed out. A tunnel stretched ahead, damp and black. McGonagall's wand light flared. Snape's wand didn't light. He preferred darkness. Harry stepped forward, and Dumbledore's hand snapped out, gripping Harry's shoulder lightly. "Close," Dumbledore murmured. "Not ahead." Harry clenched his jaw and obeyed. That word again. Obeyed. His scar warmed, almost irritated. They moved quietly. The tunnels were slick with water and old magic. The sound of dripping echoed. Harry felt the basilisk like a shadow in his mind, far away, moving, watching, guiding. He kept his face neutral. Dumbledore stopped suddenly and held up a hand. Voices ahead. Soft. Controlled. One was clipped and professional, someone used to giving orders. The other was smooth and rich, like expensive fabric. "Lucius." Harry's stomach turned. Dumbledore gestured silently, "Wait." Then Dumbledore stepped forward into the open. His wand lifted, not attacking but present. "Lucius," Dumbledore called, voice calm and bright in the darkness. The tunnel went still. A pale glow shifted ahead, then widened. Lucius Malfoy appeared, immaculate even underground, as if he brought his own air with him. Beside him stood a man in thick protective layers, gloves, reinforced cloak, and a fan of mirror plates in his hand. The hunter. Lucius's smile was immediate and coldly delighted. "Albus," he said smoothly. "What a surprise." The hunter's wand angled slightly, cautious. Lucius lifted a hand casually. "Easy. It's just the headmaster." McGonagall stepped into view behind Dumbledore like a drawn sword. Snape followed, silent. Then Harry. Lucius's eyes flicked to Harry and warmed with amusement. "Harry Potter," Lucius purred. "Still alive? How inconveniently resilient." Harry's scar burned. Dumbledore's voice stayed mild. And you, Lucius, are still trespassing. Lucius placed a hand to his chest in mock offense. Trespassing? In a school where a monster has been petrifying children? I came out of concern. McGonagall's voice snapped. Concern does not grant you access to restricted tunnels beneath Hogwarts. Lucius smiled at her like she was a loud pet. I brought assistance, he said, gesturing slightly to the hunter. A specialist, a professional, someone who knows how to handle creatures. The hunter inclined his head. Sir. Dumbledore's gaze moved to the mirror plates. Prepared, Dumbledore noted. Lucius's smile sharpened. One does not walk blind into a basilisk's lair. McGonagall's wand hand tightened. Snape's eyes didn't leave Lucius. Harry felt the basilisk's displeasure roll through him like thunder. Hunters. Harry said nothing. Dumbledore's voice remained gentle. Lucius, you will leave. Lucius's smile didn't move. He reached into his inner pocket and withdrew a folded parchment with a red seal. I am afraid, Lucius said softly, that I have authorization. McGonagall's eyes flashed. From whom? Lucius held up the seal. The Ministry. Dumbledore didn't take the parchment immediately. He simply looked at it. And in that moment, Harry understood something. This wasn't about the basilisk. This was about Dumbledore's control. Lucius had come to prove he could enter Hogwarts, do what he wanted, and force Dumbledore to accept it, or look like a dangerous, stubborn old man hiding monsters. Dumbledore's voice stayed calm. I see. Lucius's eyes gleamed. Of course you do. You wouldn't want the Ministry to think you've been negligent, would you? Harry's scar warmed hotter. Lucius's gaze slid back to Harry, delighted, especially with children involved. Harry felt his fingers curl. Dumbledore spoke quietly. The basilisk is not here. Lucius smiled wider. Then you won't mind if we check. McGonagall took a step forward, furious. This is outrageous. Dumbledore lifted a hand. McGonagall froze, vibrating with contained rage. Dumbledore's voice remained gentle. Lucius, you will return to the surface. Lucius's smile didn't falter. I will, he said smoothly, after my specialist confirms the tunnels are clear. Dumbledore's eyes cooled slightly. Or, Lucius continued, voice light, we will inform the Ministry that Hogwarts may still be harboring a lethal creature. Harry felt the trap closing. If Dumbledore fought, Lucius would cry obstruction. If Dumbledore surrendered, Lucius would take a bite out of Hogwarts and come back for more. Dumbledore's voice stayed even. Then we shall escort you. Lucius's eyes glittered. How generous. Dumbledore turned slightly, and his gaze landed on Harry. Not accusing, not pleading, simply meaning. Do not do anything that makes his story real. Harry's scar burned. Harry did nothing. They escorted them back. Not through the tunnels to the chamber. The basilisk had already pulled the hunters away from any place that mattered, leading them in circles through narrow passages where mirrors couldn't see much and spells didn't carry well. Lucius didn't know that. Lucius only knew that Dumbledore had confronted him, and now Dumbledore had let him leave. Lucius smiled as they climbed. Albus, Lucius said conversationally, you must be exhausted. All these accidents, all this chaos. Dumbledore's voice stayed calm. You seem to thrive on it. Lucius chuckled. Chaos is simply opportunity for those with the spine to seize it. Harry's scar flared. Lucius's eyes flicked toward Harry again. And young Harry, Lucius murmured, always seems to find himself at the center of it, doesn't he? Harry's voice came out low. Funny how that happens. Lucius smiled, pleased. Isn't it? Snape's gaze flicked to Harry, sharp warning. McGonagall's mouth was a thin line. Dumbledore didn't respond. But Harry saw it. Dumbledore's fingers tightened once around his wand. One small sign of irritation. Lucius had landed a hit. By morning, Hogwarts was buzzing. Not with gossip, with officials. They arrived like a storm wearing badges. Aurors in dark coats. Ministry clerks carrying folders and sealing wax. A grim wizard from the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures who looked like he hated everything that breathed. And at the center of them, walking through the entrance hall like he owned the stone, Cornelius Fudge. Harry saw him from the stairs and felt his stomach knot. Fudge's laugh was too loud, too bright, as if he could drown fear with cheer. Dumbledore, Fudge boomed. My dear fellow, terrible business, terrible. Best we sort it quickly, yeah? Dumbledore stood at the base of the marble staircase, calm and perfectly still. McGonagall was beside him, tight as a drawn bowstring. Snape stood slightly behind, expression unreadable. Lucius Malfoy stood with Fudge, elegant and satisfied. Harry scarburned. Ron and Hermione found Harry halfway down the steps. Hermione's eyes were wide. Harry, what's happening? Ron looked furious. My dad said there are Aurors in the castle. Harry kept his voice low. It's an inspection. Hermione's gaze snapped to Harry. Because of the chamber? Harry didn't answer. Hermione's eyes narrowed. Ron saw the look and went pale. Harry, what did you do? Harry's scar warmed. He didn't have time, because Fudge's eyes found him. And Fudge's smile widened, almost hungry with relief. Ah, Fudge said loudly. There he is, our famous boy. Harry felt the whole hall look at him. Mr. Potter, Fudge said, bustling forward as if they were friends. Just a few questions, that's all. Routine. Dumbledore's voice cut in, gentle but iron-backed. Minister, Harry is a child. Fudge laughed. Oh, Albus, don't be so dramatic. The boy has been at the center of this. Best we clear it up, for his own sake. Lucius's voice slid in, smooth as oil. Transparency builds trust. Harry's jaw clenched. Fudge gestured toward a nearby side room. Come along, Harry. Won't take a moment. Ron stepped forward instinctively. He's not. McGonagall snapped, Weasley enough. Hermione grabbed Ron's sleeve, whispering urgently. Harry didn't move. He looked at Dumbledore. Dumbledore met his gaze, calm and steady. It was the same look as last night. Let them ask. Don't give them a reason. Harry walked. The side room was too small for so many important men. Fudge sat at a table like it was his throne. Lucius sat beside him, crossing his legs neatly, a spectator at a trial. Two Aurors stood near the door. A ministry clerk dipped a quill into ink, ready to write Harry's life down in official script. Dumbledore stood behind Harry's chair. McGonagall stood at the wall, stiff. Snape leaned near the corner, silent, watching Harry like he expected something to crawl out of him. Fudge smiled brightly. Now then, Harry, tell me, did you encounter the creature in the Chamber of Secrets? Harry sat without being told, because he refused to give them the satisfaction of ordering him. Yes, Harry said. Fudge's eyes widened. And you killed it? Harry's scar warmed. No, Harry said. The room went still. Lucius's eyebrows lifted slightly, pleased. Fudge blinked. You didn't kill it. No. Fudge laughed awkwardly. Well, then where is it? Harry looked at him. Fudge's smile faltered. Harry's voice stayed calm. I don't know. Lucius's smile sharpened. How convenient. Harry's scar flared. Dumbledore's hand rested lightly on the back of Harry's chair, steadying, warning. Fudge leaned forward, voice dropping into something more serious. Harry, children were petrified. A girl nearly died. If the creature lives, it must be handled. Harry's voice stayed even. Ginny didn't nearly die because of a creature. Fudge blinked. What? Harry looked directly at Lucius when he said the next part. She nearly died because of a dark artifact. Lucius's smile didn't move, but his eyes flickered. Fudge looked startled. A dark artifact? Dumbledore spoke gently. A diary, Minister. Fudge's mouth opened, then closed. Lucius sighed, bored. Albus, really? Harry's scar burned. Fudge waved a hand, flustered. Yes, yes, I've heard whispers of that. But, Harry, how did you destroy it? Harry kept his tone flat. Venom. Fudge's eyes widened. Basilisk venom. The aura shifted. The clerk's scratched faster. Lucius's voice was smooth, which implies the boy had direct access to the basilisk, which implies the boy may have influenced it. Harry felt his chest tighten. Fudge turned to Harry, suddenly nervous. Did you control it, Harry? The question hung like a noose. Dumbledore's voice was calm. Minister. But Harry spoke first. No, Harry said. Lucius's smile was faintly amused. No. Harry met his gaze. I didn't control it, Harry said evenly. I survived it. Lucius's eyes glittered like he was enjoying the dance. Fudge's face tightened. Ministerial protocol requires we assess any ongoing threats. Aurors will search the lower levels. Harry's scar flared. Dumbledore's voice sharpened slightly. They will not. Fudge blinked, then laughed. Albus, you're being unreasonable. Dumbledore's eyes were kind, but cold now. The lower tunnels are unstable and warded. Sending Aurors blindly will cause panic and injury. Lucius leaned back, smiling. Or will reveal what you are hiding. Harry's scar burned so hot he tasted metal. And then Fudge said the thing Harry had been expecting since Lucius walked in. Perhaps, Fudge said slowly, we should remove Harry Potter from the school until we're confident. Ron's muffled protest came from outside the door. Hermione's sharp whisper cut him off. Harry's hands clenched. Dumbledore's voice was calm, but edged. Minister, no. Fudge's cheeks reddened. Albus, I'm trying to protect the children. Harry's voice came out low. I'm one of the children. Fudge blinked, uncomfortable. Lucius's smile sharpened. He may be the danger. The room tightened. Harry felt it. Not the room here. The castle. Hogwarts itself, hearing someone label its student, its heir, as danger. The air grew subtly heavier. Fudge frowned. What's? Harry forced himself to breathe. Dumbledore's earlier warning echoed. Power will ask whether people should obey you too. Harry didn't want to use force. But he also wouldn't be dragged out like a criminal because Lucius Malfoy wanted control. Harry lifted his eyes calmly. Minister, Harry said, voice steady. If you try to remove me by force, your aurors will fail. Silence. Fudge's face went pale. Is that a threat? Harry shook his head slowly. It's a fact. Lucius's eyes gleamed with satisfaction, like Harry had just stepped exactly where Lucius wanted him. There, Lucius murmured. Did you hear it, Minister? The arrogance, the certainty. Harry felt the trap snap shut. He'd spoken like a ruler, and now they would treat him like one. Dumbledore's voice cut in, gentle but firm. Harry, enough. Harry clenched his jaw. Fudge leaned forward, voice shaking slightly. Albus, if the boy is claiming he can resist aurors, then we have no choice but to classify him as. Careful, Dumbledore said softly, and the word landed like a warning spell. Lucius smiled. We must be safe, Albus. Harry stared at Lucius. Then he made a decision. Not dramatic. Not loud. He stood. The aurors shifted, hands tightening on their wands. Harry didn't raise his own wand. He simply looked at them and said, very calmly, If you draw on me in Hogwarts, Harry said, your wands will not like it. One auror scoffed, then tested his wand slightly, just a twitch. And the wand gave a faint, weird judder like it had hit invisible resistance. The auror's eyes widened. Fudge went pale. Merlin. Dumbledore's hand tightened briefly on Harry's shoulder. Harry felt the cost bite instantly. A cold pressure behind his eyes, like the castle's obedience, ran through his skull on its way to the world. He kept his voice controlled. I'm not hurting anyone, Harry said. I'm not attacking the ministry. I'm not hiding a threat. Lucius's voice was silk. Then cooperate. Harry's gaze snapped to Lucius. Stop pretending this is about safety, Harry said quietly. It's about you wanting control back. Lucius's smile didn't move. Mind your tone, boy. Harry's scar flared. Dumbledore stepped forward slightly, voice soft. Minister, this ends now. Fudge swallowed. Albus. Dumbledore's eyes were very clear. If you remove Harry Potter from Hogwarts without cause, you will be removing him from my protection. I assure you, Minister, there are forces in this world far worse than a frightened bureaucrat can handle. Fudge's face tightened. Lucius's smile was thin. And if you refuse oversight, Albus, you make yourself look guilty. Dumbledore's voice stayed calm. Then we compromise. Lucius's eyebrows rose. Fudge blinked. Compromise? Dumbledore nodded. You may conduct your inspection above ground. You may interview students who are petrified. You may confiscate suspicious items from common areas. Harry's scar warmed, suspicious. And Dumbledore added, eyes settling on Harry. Harry will submit to a medical evaluation from Madame Pomfrey and an independent healer from St. Mungo's to confirm he is not cursed, possessed, or magically unstable. Harry's stomach tightened. Lucius smiled faintly, pleased. Fudge exhaled, relieved. That's reasonable. Harry looked up at Dumbledore, anger rising. Dumbledore met his gaze calmly. Not surrender. Strategy. Give them something they can't twist into chains. Harry swallowed the anger down. Control. Fine, Harry said quietly. Lucius's smile sharpened. Good. Harry stared at Lucius, and in that stare was a promise. You won't win forever. When Harry stepped out of the side room, Ron grabbed him immediately. What did they do? Ron demanded. What did they say? Hermione's eyes were blazing. Harry, tell me you didn't just threaten Norris. Harry's jaw clenched. I didn't threaten anyone. Ron stared. Then why does everyone look like you did? Harry didn't answer. Hermione stepped closer, voice low and fierce. They're going to come for you, Harry, if they decide you're dangerous. I know, Harry said. Hermione's breath hitched. Then why are you acting like this is fine? Harry looked at her, and he didn't soften it. Because I'm done being moved around, he said quietly. I'm done being a thing that happens to. Ron's face twisted. Mate, that's not. That's exactly it, Harry said. Hermione's expression flickered, fear, then understanding, then something like grief. Because she could hear it in his voice. Harry wasn't asking to be saved anymore. He was deciding. Hermione swallowed hard. Then she said, very quietly, if you're going to do this, you need rules. Real ones. Written. Constraints that bind you to. Harry's scar warmed. The book's words echoed. Bind carefully. Harry met her eyes. You'd help me write them? Harry asked. Ron looked between them, horrified. You're both mad. Hermione's voice shook slightly. Yes, she said, because if you don't have limits, Harry, someone else will decide them for you. Harry held her gaze a beat longer. Then he nodded once. Tonight, Harry said. My room. Hermione nodded sharply. Ron stared like he'd just watched the floor move. You're making some secret club, Ron said, voice cracking. You're making a side. Harry's chest tightened at the word. Side. Va. Lines being drawn. Harry didn't want that. But the world was drawing lines around him anyway. I'm making protection, Harry said quietly. Ron's eyes were wet with anger. And where do I fit in that? Harry hesitated. And that hesitation hurt more than any spell. Because it meant Ron was right. Harry was changing in ways his oldest friend couldn't follow yet. I want you safe, Harry said. Ron swallowed hard. That's not an answer. Then Ron turned and walked away into the crowd, shoulders stiff, leaving Harry with the echo of his own choices. Hermione stayed. Her voice was quiet. "They'll search," she said, "if you have anything unusual." Harry's scar warmed. Harry nodded slightly. "I know." Hermione inhaled shakily. "Then we hide it. Properly." Harry looked at her, and the gratitude he felt was sharp and complicated. "Okay," Harry said. That afternoon, Aurors walked Hogwarts halls. Students stared. Whispers spread. "Ministry's here." Harry did something that Dumbledore's losing control. The monster lives. Harry talks to it. Lucius Malfoy moved through the castle like a man touring an estate he planned to purchase. Harry watched him from a corridor, feeling his scar burn. And deep below, in the tunnels, the Basilisk's voice slid into Harry's mind, calm and lethal. "Hunters returned. They will bring more." Harry's blood went cold. Because the Ministry wasn't the only threat now. It was the mask. And behind the mask were people like Lucius, people who didn't want Hogwarts safe. They wanted it owned. Harry exhaled slowly. Control. Order. He turned toward the direction of his claimed room, toward Hermione, toward rules, toward the fragile structure he was building to stop himself from becoming a monster. And in the distance, a bell rang through Hogwarts. Not the dinner bell. An official bell. A ministry announcement. A clerk's voice echoed through enchanted parchment nailed to the boards. By order of the Ministry of Magic, Hogwarts School is now under temporary investigation for the presence of dangerous magical creatures and unauthorized dark influence. Harry closed his eyes. Unauthorized dark influence. That was him. They just hadn't said it out loud yet. Harry's claimed room felt different at night. Not cozy like a common room. Not warm like a dormitory. It felt aware. Like the stone itself had agreed to be a witness. Hermione arrived just after curfew, cloak pulled tight, hair still wild from a day of ministry footsteps and whispering adults. Her eyes were bright with the kind of focus that made professors nervous. Ron didn't come. Harry didn't ask him to. That hurt more than he let himself feel. Hermione shut the door behind her and immediately pulled a stack of parchment from inside her robe. "I made drafts," she said, voice brisk to hide the shake underneath. "Rules. Real ones. And not just for your group. For you." Harry's scar warmed. "Good," he said. Hermione blinked, surprised. "You're not going to argue?" Harry stared at her for a long moment. Then he said quietly, "I'm not scared of rules, Hermione." Hermione's throat worked. "You should be scared of what happens without them." Harry nodded once. "That's why you're here." She didn't smile. She stepped to the desk, spread the parchments out, and pushed one toward him. At the top, in Hermione's neat handwriting, it read, "The Hogwarts Compact." Harry read the first lines. "I will not compel the will of another human being, that I will not use fear as a tool unless there is immediate danger, that I will not order lethal harm unless there is no other path to stop lethal harm. I will submit to oversight from a chosen council. Voluntary, binding, and recorded, I will accept consequences if I break these rules." Harry's fingers tightened on the parchment. Hermione watched him like she was watching a bridge, waiting to see if it would hold. "You wrote consequences," Harry said softly. Hermione's voice was steadier now. "Yes. If the magic you're using is what I think it is, it needs anchors. Things it cannot bend." Harry looked up. "And you think I need one too?" Hermione met his gaze without flinching. "I know you do." A long silence stretched between them. Harry could feel the room listening. He could feel the weight behind his ribs, the mantle he'd touched in the chamber, quietly testing the words like a tongue testing blood. The mantle didn't like being limited. Harry did. Harry picked up the quill. Hermione's breath hitched. "You'll do it." Harry didn't look away. "If I'm going to build order," he said quietly, "it can't be my order alone." Hermione swallowed. "Then we bind it properly." She pulled a second sheet forward, this one covered in careful circles and small runic marks in the margins. Not dark marks, old marks, the kind that made promises real. Hermione's voice went softer. This isn't a school oath. This is the kind of magic goblins respect, the kind that bites back. Harry's scar warmed hotter. Good, Harry said again. Hermione exhaled, relieved and terrified at the same time. They set the parchments on the desk. Hermione placed her wand along the edge, and Harry placed his opposite it, like two keys laid side by side. Say it aloud, Hermione instructed, voice tight. It matters. Harry stared at the first line. His mouth went dry. Then he spoke. I, Harry Potter, swear the Hogwarts Compact, he said, each word deliberate. I will not compel the will of another human being. The room tightened. Not aggressively, like it had leaned closer to hear. I will not use fear as a tool unless there is immediate danger, Harry continued. His scar burned, and he felt the mantle inside him push, unhappy. Harry kept going. I will not order lethal harm unless there is no other path to stop lethal harm. Hermione's hands were clenched so tight her knuckles went pale. I will submit to oversight from a chosen council, voluntary, binding, and recorded. Harry's voice didn't shake, but he felt the cost, a cold squeeze behind his eyes, like the magic didn't like being boxed in. I will accept consequences if I break these rules. He paused. The room was silent. Hermione whispered, sign. Harry signed. The ink dried instantly, and Harry felt something snap into place, like a ring closing around his ribs. Not pain. Restriction. A leash he'd put on himself. Hermione signed beneath his name. The moment she did, the air loosened slightly, as if the room approved. Harry exhaled slowly. Hermione's voice came out rough. Do you feel it? Harry nodded. Yes. She swallowed hard. Good. Harry lifted his gaze. Now if I go too far. Hermione's eyes shone. You'll know, and we'll know, and the magic will know. Harry stared down at the parchment again. For the first time since the chamber, his power didn't feel like a storm. It felt like a structure, and that, strangely, made it easier to breathe. The next morning, the ministry evaluation began. Madame Pomfrey stood with her arms crossed like she'd personally fight the minister if he tried anything stupid in her hospital wing. A healer from St. Mungo's arrived, calm, careful, polite in that clinical way that said, I've seen worse than you, child. Fudge and Lucius weren't present. Dumbledore had insisted on that. But two Aurors waited outside anyway, like the ministry couldn't help itself. The healer waved his wand over Harry's head, murmuring diagnostic spells. Lights flickered in the air, pale blue, then green, then a strange dark violet that made the healer's eyebrows rise. The healer murmured, frowning. Pomfrey snapped, what is it? The healer hesitated. It's unusual. Harry's scar warmed. What kind of unusual? Pomfrey demanded. The healer's eyes moved over Harry, careful, not fearful. There's a pattern in his magic. Not a curse, not possession, not a standard dark mark. He paused. It resembles, the healer said slowly, a legacy structure, authority-type resonance. Pomfrey blinked. Authority? The healer nodded reluctantly. Magic that expresses itself through dominion, control of space, strong environmental response. Harry felt his stomach tighten. Outside the curtain, one of the Aurors shifted. Harry could practically hear the report being written in someone's head. Unusual dark influence. The healer looked at Harry. Have you been in contact with any ancient artifacts? Old wards? Enchanted texts? Harry's scar warmed. He could lie. But lying to a diagnostic healer was a good way to get dragged out of Hogwarts. So Harry chose truth with edges filed down. Yes, Harry said. Hogwarts is old things. Pomfrey snorted. It's Hogwarts. The healer didn't smile. And have you felt compulsions? Voices? Urges? Harry's scar twitched. He thought of the book, the chamber, the basilisk's voice. He thought of the compact. He answered cleanly. I felt a pull, Harry said. I wrote constraints. I bound myself to them. The healer blinked. You bound yourself? Hermione, standing near the curtain, allowed in because Pomfrey had practically bullied the Aurors, stepped forward. We did, she said quickly. A voluntary compact. If you'd like to review. Pomfrey gave Hermione a look like, don't you dare hand a ministry man your work for free. But the healer's eyes sharpened with genuine interest. I would. Hermione produced a copy she'd made. Of course she had, and held it out. The healer read, mouth tightening slightly at the lines about compulsion and lethal harm. Then, quietly, this is responsible. Harry's scar warmed steady. Pomfrey looked briefly relieved, then immediately angry again, because Pomfrey didn't like being relieved about things that shouldn't have happened. The healer nodded once. Medically, he said, I find no evidence of possession, curse contamination, or mental instability. Harry's chest loosened a fraction. Outside the curtain, an Auror muttered something Harry didn't catch. Pomfrey snapped, he's a student. Now get out of my wing. By afternoon, Lucius Malfoy tried again. Not openly. Not with smiles. With pressure. Ministry clerks began requesting access to lower corridors for safety verification. Aurors started drifting toward the dungeons like they were just checking. Harry felt the basilisk's attention sharpen beneath the stone like a storm waking. They come. Again. Harry didn't answer aloud. He sent the command through the thread of his pact, controlled and precise. Stay hidden. No killing. No reveal. The basilisk's displeasure rolled through him. Hunger. Hunters. No, Harry's mental voice was iron. We do not become what they want. A pause. Then, as you command. Harry exhaled. Hermione found him near the library steps, face tight. They're escalating, she whispered. Harry nodded. I know. Hermione's voice dropped even lower. Lucius is trying to force Dumbledore into letting them confirm the threat is gone. Harry's scar burned. Hermione swallowed. If they go too deep, they might. Find it, Harry finished quietly. Hermione nodded, eyes wide. So what do we do? Harry looked down the corridor. He didn't want to fight the ministry. But he also refused to let Lucius Malfoy turn Hogwarts into a trophy case. Harry's mind moved like a chessboard. We give them something, Harry said softly. Hermione's eyebrows rose. Something. Harry didn't smile. A conclusion. That night, in the lowest maintenance corridor where the air tasted of rust, two Aurors and the specialist Hunter returned, with Lucius behind them like a shadow in expensive robes. They didn't go where they went before. Because the tunnel shifted. Not literally changing shape. Hogwarts wasn't a cartoon. But doors that were usually unlocked seemed stuck. A passage that should have been clear had a sudden rockfall. Their path kept narrowing, forcing them into tighter, more uncomfortable places. Lucius hissed softly, irritated. This is absurd. The Hunter murmured. These tunnels are warded. Old wards. Lucius's eyes narrowed. Then break them. The Hunter lifted his wand. And somewhere in the dark, something enormous slid silently past wet stone. Unseen, unheard, a presence felt only as a faint pressure of dread. The basilisk didn't attack. It didn't roar. It did something far more clever. It left a gift. A massive shed skin, old, thick, pale as bone, dragged into a visible alcove like a discarded cloak. The Aurors found it first. One of them swore. Merlin. The Hunter crouched, touching it with gloved fingers. This is... Lucius stepped closer, eyes gleaming. Proof. The Hunter nodded slowly. A Basilisk mole. Lucius's smile sharpened. So it was here. The hunter hesitated. Molting doesn't confirm death. But this is significant. Lucius's voice was smooth. Significant enough for the ministry to decide the threat is neutralized. The Aurors exchanged looks. One muttered, "We can report it." Lucius's smile deepened, satisfied. And in the darkness above, far away from them, Harry stood in his claimed room with the compact parchment under his hand, feeling the leash around his ribs tighten and hold. Hermione watched him, trembling slightly. "That'll work?" Harry stared at the runes. "It will buy time," he said. Hermione swallowed. "And Lucius?" Harry's scar warmed coldly. "He won't stop." "No." Lucius Malfoy didn't stop. But time was the thing Harry needed most. Because the real danger wasn't just Lucius. The real danger was what the destruction of the diary had awakened. It hit Harry just before dawn. A dream, except it didn't feel like sleep. It felt like being pulled underwater. He stood in a forest of dead trees under a sky without stars. The air was thin and cold and wrong. Harry looked down and saw his own breath, but it didn't fog. Because this place wasn't real. It was between. A presence moved in the darkness ahead, slow and terrible, like a thought that had learned how to hate. Red eyes opened, and Harry's scar ignited like someone had pressed a brand into it. A voice slid into his mind, smoother than the Basilisk's and far more poisonous. "So, you destroyed a piece of me." Harry didn't flinch. He felt the mantle inside him rise, cold and steady. He felt the compact tighten like a ring, reminding him, control, not cruelty. The presence drifted closer. Not a man. A shadow wearing the memory of a man. "I expected you to be prey," the voice whispered, "but you were authority." Harry's jaw tightened. "You're Voldemort," Harry said quietly. A soft laugh. "That name is for fools and followers." The shadow moved closer, and Harry felt something try to hook into his thoughts, testing, tasting, probing. Legitimacy. But Harry's mind wasn't an open door anymore. It was a room he'd claimed. The pressure slid forward and hit a wall. The shadow paused. Then the voice became sharp with interest. "You can resist me. Not with love. Not with luck. With rule." Harry's scar burned. Harry held the wall. "You can't have me," Harry said. The shadow's laughter was quiet and cold. "I don't want you to, I want to know what you are." The probing pressure pushed again, harder. Harry felt the cost bite immediately, a cold ache behind his eyes, a tightening in his chest. He kept the wall up. Then the shadow whispered, almost pleased. "Arrivad." Harry's blood went colder than the forest air. "You're not getting Hogwarts," Harry said. The shadow laughed softly. "I don't care about your school, that I care about what you've become inside it." The red eyes narrowed. "You made a monster kneel. You bound yourself with law that you're building a court." Harry's scar flared. Harry felt the basilisk's presence stir faintly in the distance of his mind, like a guardian hearing its name. The shadow's voice dropped into something intimate and vicious. "Do you know what happens when two dark lords exist in one world, Harry Potter?" Harry's voice came out like steel. "One of them loses," he said. A pause. Then the shadow's laugh turned delighted. "Good." The forest tilted. The dream began to collapse. But before it vanished, the shadow leaned close enough that Harry felt the cold of it. "I am coming back, and when I return, you will kneel or you will burn." Harry's scar screamed. Harry's wall held. And then, Harry jolted awake in his bed, gasping, sweat cold on his skin. His scar burned like fire. He clenched his teeth, breathing hard. Across the dormitory, Ron slept with his back turned. On the floor near Harry's trunk, the black book, hidden, wrapped, felt suddenly warmer, like it had been listening to the dream too. Harry swallowed hard and whispered into the darkness, voice hoarse. "I'm not kneeling." Far below, through stone and pipe and old earth, The Basilisk's voice slid into his mind. Calm, watchful, deadly. The shadow with red eyes. I remember it hunts you. Harry's chest tightened. Yeah, Harry whispered. I know. And somewhere in the castle, in the quiet before morning, a small rat with two clever eyes slipped out of a sleeping boy's pocket and crept toward the shadows, moving with purpose like it had finally received a call it couldn't ignore. By breakfast, Hogwarts felt like a house with strangers inside it. Oris at corridor corners. Ministry clerks with clipboards hovering near notice boards. Professors walking a little straighter like they were forcing themselves to be calm for the students. And Lucius Malfoy, still there, moving through the great hall like he belonged at the high table. Harry sat with Gryffindor and felt every gaze like a finger-tapping glass. Ron shoved toast around his plate without eating. Hermione kept looking at the doors, tracking movement with the focus of a person counting exits. Harry's scar burned in a steady, irritated line. Not pain. Pressure. Like the castle had noticed how many outsiders were in its body. Then Percy Weasley, stiff, official, pretending he wasn't a child among children, approached the Gryffindor table with two ministry clerks behind him. Ron stiffened. Hermione's mouth tightened. Harry looked up calmly. Harry Potter, Percy said, with a strained kind of importance. The minister requests your presence. Again. Ron shot to his feet. Again? He already. Percy snapped. Ron, sit down. This is ministry business. Ron's face went red. He's my best friend. Percy's jaw tightened. He's also the center of a creature investigation and possible dark influence. See, Harry watched Percy, and something cold settled behind his ribs. This wasn't about safety anymore. This was about labels. Once the ministry decided you were a concern, they didn't stop until you were either obedient or removed. Harry stood. Ron grabbed his sleeve. Harry, don't go alone. Harry looked at Ron. Really looked. Ron's anger was real, but so was fear. Ron didn't fear Harry. He feared what Harry was getting pulled into. Harry spoke quietly. I'm not alone. Ron's eyes flicked to Hermione. Hermione stood instantly. I'm coming. One of the clerks opened his mouth. Harry didn't raise his wand. He simply said, calmly, if the minister wants me, he gets me, not a separated, isolated version of me. The clerk swallowed. Percy's eyes darted, uncertain. The castle's air tightened slightly, like it approved of not being moved around. Percy forced a stiff nod. Fine, but no games. Harry walked. Hermione followed. Ron hesitated for one heartbeat, then followed two, jaw clenched like a promise. The interview room this time wasn't a side office. It was the old defense classroom. Rows of desks pushed back, ministry chairs arranged like a little courtroom. Fudge sitting at the front with that same too-bright smile. Lucius Malfoy stood behind him, hands folded, enjoying himself. Dumbledore sat to one side, calm and watchful. McGonagall stood with her arms crossed like she might start biting. Snape lingered in the back like a bad omen that had learned to read. Harry, Hermione, and Ron stopped at the doorway. Fudge's smile widened. Ah, Harry, wonderful. His eyes flicked to Hermione and Ron and tightened for half a second. Then he recovered. Friends, yes, support is good. Lucius's gaze slid over Ron with faint contempt, then lingered on Hermione like she was a strange bug he couldn't decide whether to crush or pin to a board. Harry stepped forward and sat without waiting to be told. Hermione sat beside him. Ron stayed standing for a moment, then dropped into the chair like he was furious it existed. Fudge cleared his throat dramatically. Now then, Fudge said, adopting his reasonable minister voice, we've received concerning reports. Harry kept his face blank. From who? Lucius answered smoothly. From responsible adults. Harry's scar burned. Hermione's fingers curled around her chair's edge. Fudge continued, too quickly. Reports that you've been gathering students after hours, that you've been influencing Hogwarts itself. Ron made a harsh sound. Influencing Hogwarts? What does that even mean? Lucius's smile sharpened. It means doors open for him, Weasley. Ron half stood, and doors open for Dumbledore, too. Dumbledore's voice cut in calm. Minister, focus. Fudge blinked and nodded, grateful to be guided. Right, focus. Harry, your healer evaluation noted authority-type resonance. That isn't common. Harry said nothing. Fudge leaned forward. We need reassurance. Cooperation. Hermione's voice snapped. You already got reassurance. The healer found no curse, no possession, no instability. Fudge flushed. Miss Granger, this is not. It is, Hermione said, eyes bright. Because you're building a case, not asking questions. Lucius sighed, bored. Children lecturing the ministry. How modern. Harry turned his gaze to Lucius. What do you want? Lucius smiled like Harry had offered him a sweet. Safety. Harry's scar burned hotter. Liar. A hush fell over the room. Fudge sputtered. Harry, that's... Harry didn't look away. This all started because you slipped a diary to Ginny Weasley. Lucius's smile didn't move. A baseless accusation. Ron went white. What? Hermione's head snapped to Harry, eyes wide. She hadn't known Harry would say it out loud like that. Here, in front of everyone. Harry's voice stayed flat. It's not baseless. Lucius's eyes glittered. Prove it. Dumbledore's gaze sharpened slightly. McGonagall's mouth tightened. Harry felt the compact tighten around his ribs like a warning. Don't do something you can't justify. Don't let anger choose for you. Harry inhaled slowly. I can't, Harry said. Lucius's smile widened. Exactly. Ron stared at Harry, horrified. Harry, Ginny said she didn't remember. Are you? Harry's jaw clenched. I'm not lying. I just can't prove it in a ministry room run by his friends. Fudge spluttered. Now see here. Hermione's voice was low and fierce. Minister, if you're investigating dangerous influence, perhaps you should investigate the man who keeps turning up wherever dangerous influence appears. Lucius's smile turned cold. Careful, Miss Granger. Hermione didn't flinch. Or what? You'll call me mud-blood in front of the minister? The room went very still. Fudge looked like he wanted to pretend he hadn't heard. Lucius's eyes flashed, then smoothed into silk again. I would never be so crude. Harry's scar burned. Snape's gaze shifted faintly. He didn't speak, but his stillness sharpened, like he'd become more dangerous by deciding to remain quiet. Fudge cleared his throat, desperate to regain control. Enough, Fudge said brightly, too brightly. This is about Harry Potter's behavior. He gestured to a clerk. The clerk produced a parchment. By ministry authority, Fudge announced, we are placing temporary restrictions on Mr. Potter. McGonagall took a step forward. Minister, Fudge waved her off. Nothing harsh, just reasonable precautions. Harry's stomach tightened. What restrictions? Harry asked calmly. Fudge smiled. Curfew. No one knows that I used the gatherings. And one monitoring. Ron exploded. One monitoring. That's insane. Hermione's face went pale. You can't do that to a student inside Hogwarts. Lucius's voice was soft and satisfied. We can actually. Harry felt the castle's air tighten like a throat closing. This wasn't a policy. This was a collar. Harry's scar burned. Behind his ribs, the mantle rose, cold, possessive. The compact tightened again, harder this time. No compulsion. No forcing human wills. Harry kept his voice steady. If you monitor my wand, I won't be safer. I'll be blind. Fudge blinked. Blind? Harry's gaze flicked to Dumbledore. Not accusing, just meaning. Dumbledore said nothing, but his eyes were very clear. Choose carefully. Harry looked back at Fudge. If something attacks this school, Harry said quietly, and you've tied my hands, then the blood is on you. Fudge's face reddened. That's quite enough. Lucius leaned closer to Fudge and murmured something. Fudge nodded quickly, emboldened. Then we proceed, Fudge declared. An Auror stepped forward with a small silver band, an enchanted monitoring cuff meant for wand handles, designed to record spell work and flare when it sensed restricted magic. Harry's scar burned. Ron half stood. Hermione's hand clenched. Harry could feel the castle listening, tense, angry. And for a heartbeat, he felt the temptation, sweet and easy, rise in him. One word point, one command. Wands drop. Dorshilsh. Everyone freezes. He could end this. Right now. He could prove Lucius wrong by making Lucius helpless. And that would make Lucius right forever. Harry exhaled slowly and did something harder. He smiled, very slightly, and spoke calmly. Minister, Harry said, if you do this, I will comply. Fudge blinked, surprised. Oh, good. Sensible. Lucius's eyes narrowed. He didn't like how easy that was. Harry continued, voice even, and in return, you will put in writing that no Auror, specialist, or ministry agent will enter the lower tunnels beneath Hogwarts. Lucius's smile snapped. Absolutely not. Fudge hesitated. That's... Harry's scar burned. Harry looked at Fudge, not Lucius. You can't say you're doing this for safety, Harry said quietly. Then keep sending hunters into a place that can get students killed. Dumbledore's eyes gleamed faintly, approving of the pivot. McGonagall's posture sharpened. Fudge faltered. Well, that's reasonable, perhaps. Lucius leaned in, voice silk with steel. Minister. Fudge swallowed and looked helplessly between them like a man trapped between an old lion and a young one. Harry's voice stayed calm. Write it. Lucius's gaze turned cold. No. Harry's scar flared. The mantle inside him rose like a crown of stone. The compact tightened around his ribs like a fist. And Harry realized the true shape of the trap. Lucius didn't actually care about monitoring Harry's wand. Lucius cared about forcing Harry to either kneel or reveal himself. Harry forced his breathing steady. I'll accept the cuff, Harry said, only if you restrict tunnels. Fudge licked his lips. Lucius, perhaps we can. Lucius smiled without warmth. No. Fudge's face tightened. Then we proceed. The Auror lifted the silver band toward Harry's wand. Hermione made a small, desperate sound. Ron's chair scraped back. And then, the door to the classroom slammed open so hard it rattled the hinges. Everyone turned. Professor Lupin stood there, breathing hard, eyes wide and alarmed. My apologies, Lupin said quickly, voice tight, but, Headmaster, there's an emergency in the dungeons. Dumbledore rose instantly. What kind of emergency? Lupin's gaze flicked to Harry, then away. A rat. Ron blinked. A rat. Lupin swallowed. Not just a rat. Harry's scar went ice cold. Because he felt it too, like a hook in the back of his mind. A small presence moving fast through the castle. Clever, terrified, purposeful. A creature that knew secrets. A creature that had been hiding for years. Harry stood so quickly his chair tipped back. Dumbledore's gaze sharpened. Where? Lupin's voice was tight. Near the old storage corridors by the 4th floor. A student, Mr. Weasley. Ron went pale. Scabbers. Harry's stomach dropped. Lupin nodded once, grim. He transformed. The room went silent. Hermione's eyes widened in horror as understanding slammed into her. Ron's voice cracked. No, he's a rat. He's just. Harry's scar burned. Not Voldemort. Not Lucius. This was another piece of the same rot. Wormtail. The traitor. The man who'd sold Harry's parents. And if Wormtail was moving, then Voldemort's shadow wasn't just dreaming at Harry anymore. It was acting. Fudge sputtered, panicked. Transformed? Are you saying? An animagus? Here. Lucius's face tightened, interest flashing. Dumbledore's voice became iron calm. Minerva. Severus. With me. McGonagall nodded sharply. Snape's eyes gleamed like knives. Dumbledore turned to Fudge. Minister, this meeting is over. Fudge protested weakly. But Harry's restrictions. Harry didn't even look at him. He walked past the aura with the silver cuff like the man didn't exist. Ron stumbled after him, face white with shock. Hermione followed, breathing fast. Lucius watched them go, eyes narrowed in calculation. Because Lucius understood something immediately. If Wormtail was here, then Voldemort's return was closer than the Ministry could admit. And if Voldemort returned, Harry Potter's influence wasn't just a school problem anymore. It was a war problem. They reached the fourth-floor corridor in a rush of robes and footsteps. Students had been pushed back by a protective line. McGonagall had the instinct of a general. In the center of the corridor, a small, trembling man in torn robes crouched near a wall, wand clutched like it was the only thing keeping him alive. His face was pinched and rat-like. His eyes were too bright with fear. Peter Pettigrew. Wormtail. Ron made a strangled sound. Hermione's hand flew to her mouth. Harry's scar burned like fire. Pettigrew's gaze snapped to Harry and widened in pure terror. And no, Pettigrew whimpered. Please, please. Snape stepped forward like a predator. You, he hissed, voice dripping contempt. Pettigrew flinched back. Dumbledore's gaze was colder than Harry had ever seen it. Peter, Dumbledore said quietly. Where is he? Pettigrew shook violently. I don't know, I swear. Harry felt the castle's air tighten around the corridor. He felt the mantle behind his ribs rise, hungry. The compact clamped down hard. No compulsión. Harry clenched his jaw, fighting the urge to force the truth out of Pettigrew like squeezing water from a cloth. He could do it. He could make Pettigrew speak. He could end years of uncertainty with one act of domination. And then he would become the very thing Dumbledore feared. Harry inhaled. Slow. Controlled. He didn't compel Pettigrew's mind. He compelled the space. Kneel, Harry whispered. Not to Pettigrew, not to a human will, but to the corridor itself. The air thickened. Pettigrew's legs buckled as if gravity had decided it didn't like him. He collapsed to his knees with a pathetic sob. Snape's eyes widened slightly. McGonagall stared. Dumbledore's gaze sharpened, not angry, measuring. Harry felt the cost bite instantly. A sharp ache behind his eyes, like holding the castle's attention, was like holding a heavy door shut. Pettigrew sobbed. Please, please, I didn't mean. Harry stepped closer, voice low. You did. Pettigrew looked up at him, shaking. Harry saw it clearly now. Pettigrew wasn't brave. He wasn't loyal. He was the kind of coward who survived by clinging to whoever looked strongest. And Harry knew, with cold clarity, Pettigrew would cling to Voldemort again the moment he could. Harry leaned in slightly. You're going to tell us where he is, Harry said quietly. The compact tightened like a warning. Harry corrected himself immediately. You're going to choose to tell us, Harry said, because if you don't, you'll go back to him, and you'll die anyway. Pettigrew's eyes darted wildly. Dumbledore stepped forward, voice gentle but dangerous. Peter, he said softly, your choices have ended lives. They will not end more today. Pettigrew's mouth opened, and then a sharp, thin laugh echoed from nowhere. Not from a person, from magic. The torches in the corridor flickered. A cold pressure swept through the air like a hand passing over skin. Harry's scar screamed. Everyone froze. A whisper, high, cold, delighted, slid into the corridor like smoke. Found you. Pettigrew's eyes went wide with terror. "No!" he shrieked. His body jerked violently, as if something yanked his spine from the inside. A dark mark, faint, half-formed, flared on his forearm like a brand waking from sleep. Snape's breath hitched. McGonagall's wand snapped up. Dumbledore's voice turned sharp. "Shield!" The corridor's air turned icy. And then Pettigrew's mouth opened and someone else spoke through it. Someone colder, older, hungry. "Harry Potter." Harry's scar burned like molten metal. The mantle behind his ribs rose like a crown. The compact clamped down like a chain. And Harry understood instantly what this was. Not Voldemort's body. Not yet. A remote touch. A fragment of will sliding through the mark, using Pettigrew like a mouth. Voldemort wasn't here. But he was close enough to reach. "You've been making promises," the voice purred through Pettigrew's lips, making monsters kneel, building little rules in little rooms. Harry's stomach went cold. Dumbledore's gaze locked on Pettigrew, face hard. Snape looked like he'd been punched in the soul. Voldemort's voice continued, amused. "The Ministry fears you. Dumbledore watches you. Good at IT will make breaking you so much sweeter." Harry stepped forward one pace. He didn't raise his wand. He didn't shout. He spoke quietly. "Get out of him." The whisper laughed. "Or what?" The temptation rose again, sweet, simple. Crush the corridor, seal the air, force the magic back. Harry's scar screamed. The mantle demanded action. The compact tightened, warning. No cruelty, no compulsion of human will. Harry made a choice. Not force. Not surrender. Exposure. Harry looked at Dumbledore. "We can't keep this hidden anymore," Harry said quietly. Dumbledore's eyes widened a fraction. Harry turned his gaze to the air, toward the presence, using Pettigrew like a puppet. "If you want a rival," Harry said, voice low and steady, "you can have one." The whisper stilled. For the first time, Voldemort sounded interested. "Oh." Harry's scar burned like fire. And deep below, far under Hogwarts, a massive ancient creature shifted in the dark, sensing its bonded allies' danger. "Say the word." The Basilisk's voice slid into Harry's mind. "And I will come." Harry's jaw clenched. One word, and the Basilisk would tear through stone and tunnel to reach him. One word, and Hogwarts would become a battlefield in the open. Harry stared at Pettigrew, at Voldemort's voice wearing his mouth. Then he exhaled. "Control. Order." He whispered into the packed thread. "Not yet." The Basilisk's displeasure rolled like thunder. Harry kept his eyes on the whisper in the air. "You don't get to choose the field," Harry said softly. "Edo." The whisper laughed, quiet, cold, delighted. "We'll see." Pettigrew convulsed violently, then collapsed, gasping, the dark presence slipping away like smoke sucked back into a crack. Silence fell hard. Students in the distance whispered in terror. McGonagall's face was white. Snape looked like he couldn't decide whether to kill Pettigrew or collapse himself. Dumbledore stepped closer to Harry, voice very low. "Harry," he said, "what do you mean? We can't keep this hidden." Harry's scar burned. His throat went tight, because he knew what the next step cost. If he revealed the Basilisk, the Ministry would try to kill it. If he didn't, Voldemort would use it, use fear of it, to fracture Hogwarts and take what he wanted. Harry looked at Dumbledore and spoke quietly, with a steadiness that scared even him. "I mean," Harry said, "this is bigger than school rules now." Dumbledore's gaze sharpened. Harry's voice dropped even lower. "I'm going to set terms," Harry said, "for the Ministry, for Malfoy, for Voldemort." A beat of silence. Then Dumbledore said softly, almost a whisper, "And if they refuse?" Harry's scar burned. The mantle behind his ribs rose like stone. The compact tightened like a leash. Harry answered anyway. Then, Harry said, I stopped asking. The corridor didn't feel like Hogwarts anymore. It felt like a border. On one side, children in nightclothes whispering behind prefects, fear spreading faster than any spell. On the other, Pettigrew on his knees, shaking, a grown man who had hidden as a rat in a child's pocket for years. Dumbledore's voice cut through the tension like a knife through cloth. Minerva, take the students away. Now. McGonagall didn't argue. She didn't need to. She snapped her wand up, hurting the watching students back with clipped commands and steel-eyed authority. Snape grabbed Pettigrew by the collar like he was lifting a particularly disgusting piece of trash. You? Snape hissed, shaking with something that wasn't just rage. You worm. Pettigrew sobbed. I didn't, he made me. He didn't have to, Harry said quietly. Pettigrew's eyes darted to him, terror so sharp it was almost worshipful, the way cowards always looked at power when they thought it might spare them. Harry felt the compact tighten around his ribs. No compulsion, no cruelty. He didn't touch Pettigrew's mind. He didn't need to. He looked at Dumbledore. You're calling ministry, Harry said. Dumbledore met his gaze. Yes. Harry scarburned. They'll turn this into a circus. Dumbledore's expression turned colder than Harry had ever seen it. Then we will control the ring. Snape jerked Pettigrew upright. Pettigrew stumbled, whining. I can help, Pettigrew babbled. I can, please, he'll kill me. Harry's voice didn't rise, but it landed heavy. He already planned to, Harry said. You were a tool. Tools get thrown away. Pettigrew's mouth opened, then shut. The truth hit him like a spell. Snape dragged him away. The corridor finally exhaled. And in that exhale, Harry felt it, the mantle behind his ribs shifting, settling, growing heavier with every adult who looked at him and realized this wasn't just a school mystery anymore. Dumbledore stepped closer. Harry, he said softly, tell me what you intend. Harry swallowed. I'm going to set terms, Harry said. McGonagall, returning after shooing the last student, went rigid. Mr. Potter. Harry didn't look away from Dumbledore. For the ministry, Harry continued, and for Malfoy, and for Voldemort. A beat of silence. Then Dumbledore said, very quietly, and if they refuse? Harry felt the compact tighten. He forced himself to answer without slipping into the sweet ease of violence. Then I stopped letting them corner children with paperwork, Harry said. I stopped playing defense. McGonagall's voice came out sharp. That sounds dangerously like treason. Harry's eyes flicked to her. It sounds like someone finally doing the job adults keep failing. McGonagall flinched because it hurt and because it was too close to true. Dumbledore lifted a hand, not to silence her, to steady the air. Not here, Dumbledore said calmly. Not now. Come. In the headmaster's office, dawn light spilled across the instruments like the castle was trying to pretend this was still a normal morning. It wasn't. Snape stood at the side, arms folded, eyes fixed on Harry like he was waiting for a mask to slip. McGonagall hovered near Fawkes's perch, tense as a drawn bowstring. Pettigrew sat bound in a chair, guarded by a pair of enchanted ropes that looked like they would tighten just from being offended. Hermione arrived breathless, hair wild, eyes furious. Ron came behind her. He looked wrecked, pale, angry, betrayed, like his world had cracked, and he didn't know which pieces belonged where anymore. He stared at Pettigrew and whispered, voice breaking, "Scabbers." Pettigrew whimpered. Ron's hand shook. Harry opened his mouth. Ron beat him to it. You knew, Ron said, staring at Harry like it physically hurt. You knew something was wrong. You kept secrets. You made this. His voice cracked on the last word, as if the idea of Harry being the center of anything frightened him more than ministry horrors. Harry didn't defend himself. Not yet. He pointed at Pettigrew. That, Harry said quietly, is why secrets matter. Ron's jaw clenched. Don't turn this into a lesson. Hermione stepped between them slightly, voice tight. Ron, this isn't about your feelings right now. Ron snapped. It is when my rat was a murderer. Dumbledore's voice cut in, calm and iron. Enough, he said. The room obeyed. Dumbledore looked at Harry. Speak. Harry inhaled slowly. He didn't look at the black book hidden in his trunk. He didn't reach for the mantle like a weapon. He leaned on the compact. Here's what's true, Harry said. The Ministry is terrified. Lucius Malfoy is pushing them. Voldemort is close enough to touch us through Pettigrew. Snape's eyes glinted dangerously at the name. Harry continued, voice steady. If the Ministry keeps hunting in the tunnels, someone will die. Maybe a student, maybe an Auror, and they'll blame Hogwarts. McGonagall's mouth tightened. And your solution? Harry met her gaze. I reveal the Basilisk. Silence slammed down. Hermione went very still, like even she hadn't expected him to say it out loud like that. Snape's expression sharpened, predatory. Absolutely not. McGonagall looked like she might hex Harry on principle. Mr. Potter, that creature. Dumbledore raised a hand slowly. On his terms, he said quietly, eyes locked on Harry. Harry nodded. I set the field, Harry said. Not Lucius, not the Ministry, not Voldemort. Hermione swallowed. If you show it, if they see it, they'll try to kill it. Harry's scar warmed. I know, Harry said. That's why we don't show it like a monster. He looked at Dumbledore. We show it like a treaty. Dumbledore's eyes narrowed slightly. Harry continued. We bring witnesses. We set rules. We bind it in writing. You sign. The Ministry signs. Anyone who breaks it pays a magical consequence. Snape's voice dripped contempt. You're proposing politics with a basilisk. Harry looked at him calm. I'm proposing politics with people who act like basilisk venom is a bargaining chip. Snape's eyes flashed. Dumbledore's voice was quiet. And what do you offer in exchange? Harry's chest tightened. This, Harry said, and gestured to Hermione. Hermione immediately pulled a parchment from her robe, hands trembling, but eyes fierce. The Hogwarts Compact, Hermione said, binding constraints, limits on what Harry can do. Dumbledore took it, read quickly, and something in his face shifted, relief and dread tangled together. McGonagall leaned in, read, and went very still. Snape's eyes sharpened like he'd just realized Harry had chained himself. Dumbledore looked up. This is responsible, he said softly. Harry's voice stayed steady. If the Ministry wants to label me a threat, then they can sign something that binds me and them. Dumbledore studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded once. Very well, Dumbledore said. We do it. McGonagall stared. Albus. Dumbledore's eyes were gentle but unmoving. Minerva, they're already inside the castle. The choice is not whether this becomes public. The choice is whether we control how. He turned to Snape. Severus, Dumbledore said, you will escort Lucius Malfoy to the Great Hall. Snape's smile was thin. Gladly. And you, Dumbledore added, gaze cutting to Pettigrew, will be our proof that Voldemort has moved. Pettigrew began to sob again. Dumbledore's eyes hardened. Yes, he said softly. Cry. It won't save you. Ron stood rigid, breathing hard. Harry looked at him. Ron, Harry said quietly, I need you to decide something. Ron's eyes flicked to him, red-rimmed. What? Harry's voice didn't soften. Are you with me, or are you afraid of me? Ron flinched like he'd been slapped. Hermione inhaled sharply. Ron stared at Harry for a long time. Then Ron's gaze slid to Pettigrew again, the rat man who'd lived under his bed, who'd eaten crumbs at his feet, who'd been there while Ron talked about his family. Ron's fists clenched. I'm afraid, Ron said hoarsely. Harry's throat tightened. Ron swallowed hard and forced the rest out anyway. But I'm with you. It wasn't a hug. It wasn't forgiveness. It was a step. And Harry felt it like a thread tightening into place, not obedience. Following, Dumbledore nodded once. Then Dumbledore said, "We begin." The Great Hall at midday was a storm contained by stone. Students sat stiffly, whispers buzzing like flies. Professors lined the staff table like a wall. At the front, Fudge stood with a forced smile, flanked by Aurors and clerks. Lucius Malfoy stood beside him, elegant, amused, until Snape arrived behind him like a shadow that had decided to be sharp. Dumbledore stepped forward. The hall quieted, not because everyone respected him, but because everyone could feel something big about to happen. "Minister," Dumbledore said calmly, "you requested oversight. You will have clarity." Fudge blinked rapidly. "Albus, now, let's not frighten the children." "You already have," McGonagall snapped. Dumbledore ignored the noise. He lifted his wand, and the doors of the Great Hall slammed shut. Not locked, just closed, firm, final. Harry felt the castle react, not with Dumbledore's magic, but with something else. With attention, because Harry had stepped into the center aisle beside Dumbledore. Lucius's eyes narrowed at Harry, a predator seeing a rival who wasn't playing prey anymore. Dumbledore spoke, voice carrying. First, Dumbledore said, "A truth the Ministry cannot ignore." Snape stepped forward and yanked Pettigrew into view. A collective gasp rippled through the hall. Students leaned forward, horrified. Fudge's face went pale. "What is this?" Dumbledore said quietly, "is Peter Pettigrew, Animagus, former Order member, traitor." Lucius went still. Ron's breathing sharpened beside Harry. Hermione's hands clenched. Dumbledore continued, and his voice made the Great Hall feel colder. "Peter Pettigrew is alive," Dumbledore said, "and he has been hiding at Hogwarts for years." The hall erupted, shouts, disbelief, panic. Fudge spluttered. "Albus, this is outrageous." "It becomes more outrageous," Dumbledore said mildly. He looked at the minister, and for the first time, Fudge looked genuinely afraid of him. "Peter was branded," Dumbledore said softly, and a dark presence spoke through him this morning. A hush slammed down. Fudge swallowed. "You mean?" "Yes," Dumbledore said. "Voldemort." The word hit the hall like a physical blow. Lucius's eyes flickered just once. Dumbledore's gaze snapped to him, sharp as a blade. "And now," Dumbledore said, "we address the second truth." He looked at Harry. Harry stepped forward. Every gaze pinned him. Harry's scar burned, not pain, but pressure. The mantle behind his ribs rose. The compact tightened like a hand on his heart. Harry lifted a parchment. "This," Harry said clearly, "is what you wanted to put on me." A ministry cuff sat on a tray near Fudge, silver and gleaming. Harry didn't touch it. He held up a different parchment. "And this," Harry said, "is what I'm offering instead." Hermione stepped forward beside him, holding the compact copy and the second document. Fresh parchment, new ink, runic margins. At the top it read, "The Hogwarts Creature Accord." A rustle swept the hall like wind through grass. Lucius's lips curved. Absurd. Harry's gaze pinned him. "Minister," Harry said, voice steady, "you want safety? Then you sign safety, not control." Fudge blinked, confused. "What is this?" Dumbledore answered calmly, "A binding agreement witnessed by Hogwarts itself." Fudge swallowed. "That's not a—" "It is," Hermione said sharply. "It uses the same principle as ancient ward oaths. If you break it, you will feel it. If you order someone else to break it, you will feel it." Fudge went paler. Lucius's eyes narrowed. "Goo." Harry didn't move. "We will show you what you're actually arguing about," Harry said. "On our terms." McGonagall's voice cut across the hall. No students move. No one follows. The teachers rose like a wall. Only a small group came. Dumbledore, McGonagall, Snape, Fudge, 2 Aurors, the St. Mungo's healer, Lucius because he forced his way in with legal entitlement, Hermione, Ron, and Harry. They descended. And as the castle swallowed them into its depths, Harry felt it. The stone getting older, quieter, more alive. Not hostile, watchful. As if Hogwarts wanted to see what kind of ruler Harry would be when the world stared directly at his monster. They stopped in a controlled cavern, not the chamber itself, but a widened junction near it where the ceiling was high enough to breathe and the walls were thick with old wards. Dumbledore raised his wand and layered protections like blankets, reflective charms, barrier wards, silencing fields. Fudge clutched his hat like it was a shield. One Auror kept swallowing hard. Lucius looked excited. That disgusted Harry more than fear ever could. Dumbledore nodded once at Harry. Harry stepped to the edge of the warded circle and closed his eyes. He reached down through stone and water and iron. Not as a commander barking orders. As someone calling an ally who had chosen him. Come, Harry whispered in parcel tongue. Slowly, eyes closed. No fear. The earth answered. A pressure rolled through the tunnel like thunder without sound. Then the darkness moved. The basilisk emerged. Even with its eyes shut, even with barriers between them, it was overwhelming. Ancient muscle and scale and hunger held under law. Its head lowered slightly as it entered the circle, obedient to the rule of the space Harry had asked it to respect. Fudge made a choking sound. One Auror took a step back. Lucius inhaled like a man smelling expensive wine. Snape's face went tight, recognition and loathing twisting together. McGonagall's wand remained rock steady, but her knuckles were white. Harry spoke softly in parcel tongue. Stop coil still. The basilisk obeyed. Not trembling obedience. Chosen obedience. It coiled in the circle like a storm contained. Harry turned to Fudge. This is what you were hunting, Harry said, voice calm. And this is why you don't send people blundering into tunnels. Fudge's face shone with sweat. It's alive. Yes, Harry said, and it is bound. Lucius smiled. By him. Harry looked at Lucius. By pact. Lucius's eyes glittered. Call it what you like. Hermione stepped forward, voice tight but steady. The basilisk will not hunt students. It will not roam the castle. It will not kill unless there is immediate lethal threat and no alternative. Those terms are written. Those terms are binding. Fudge swallowed. It can't be kept under a school. Dumbledore's voice was calm. It already has been, Minister. For centuries. Your concern is not location. It is control. Fudge looked at Harry, trembling between fear and anger. Is it loyal to you? Fudge demanded. Harry's scar warmed. He felt the mantle rise. He felt the compact tighten. He answered with precision. It listens to me, Harry said, because I offered it law instead of chains. Lucius let out a soft laugh. A child playing king. Harry's eyes didn't blink. Then Lucius did what Lucius always did when he sensed a moment turning away from him. He tried to break it. He flicked his fingers. The hunter, who'd crept behind the Aurors despite Dumbledore's protections, raised a wand and launched a cutting curse toward the basilisk's head. Everything happened at once. McGonagall shouted, Shield! Dumbledore moved like lightning. Snape's wand snapped up. The Aurors panicked. And the basilisk, still coiled, twitched. Its tail slammed the ground once. Not to kill. To protect. The cavern shook. Stone dust rained. The hunter stumbled, mirror plates clattering. Fudge screamed. Lucius's smile vanished. Harry's scar flared. The mantle surged, demanding punishment. The compact clamped hard. No cruelty. No compulsion of human will. Harry didn't crush Lucius. He didn't freeze him. He didn't break his mind. He did something colder. He claimed the space. Enough, Harry whispered, not to people, but to the cavern. The air thickened. Wands juddered. The hunter's wand slipped from his grip like it suddenly didn't want to be held. Dumbledore's curse hit second, clean, decisive. The hunter dropped, unconscious. Silence slammed down again. Lucius stared at Harry, breathing harder now. That, Lucius said softly, is exactly why you can't be trusted. Harry met his eyes. And that, Harry replied, equally soft, is exactly why you can't be allowed to pretend you're here for safety. Dumbledore's voice cut in, steel under velvet. Lucius Malfoy, Dumbledore said, you brought a hunter into my school and ordered an attack. Lucius's chin lifted. Prove I ordered anything. Hermione raised her wand slightly, her voice shaking with fury. The compact is witnessed, she said, and the cavern is warded. Dumbledore's ward's record intent. Fudge looked like he might faint. Dumbledore's eyes stayed on Lucius. Minister, Dumbledore said softly, you wanted a dangerous influence. Here it is. Lucius's eyes went cold. And in that moment, Harry felt it, sharp as a hook. A pressure sliding in through the dark mark on Pettigrew far above. Voldemort, watching, testing, feeling the Basilisk's presence, trying to claim it like property. The Basilisk's voice exploded into Harry's mind like thunder. The red-eyed shadow pulls .it calls me .old master call. Harry's scar screamed. The mantle surged. The compact tightened. Harry's breath came out sharp. He turned toward the Basilisk and spoke in parcel tongue, low, absolute, and chosen. Not him to me. The Basilisk shuddered. Old compulsion fought new law. For one terrifying second, Harry felt the tug of Slytherin's chain, ancient command trying to drag the Basilisk back under a dead master. Harry's vision blurred. Blood pricked at his nose. Price. Always a price. Harry pressed his palm against the cavern floor like he was anchoring himself to the stone. I fed you. I bound myself. I gave you purpose. Choose. The Basilisk stilled. Then, slowly, its massive head lowered toward Harry, eyes still shut, and it spoke in his mind with a calm that felt like an oath. I choose the one who does not use chains. The pressure, Voldemort's pull, snapped back like a hand burned on hot iron. Harry staggered, swallowing hard. Somewhere above, in the distance of his scar, Harry felt a hiss of fury. Good, then you're real. Voldemort retreated. Not gone, but pushed back. And everyone in the cavern had just witnessed something they didn't have language for. A monster refusing an old Dark Lord because a boy offered it law. Harry straightened slowly. He wiped the blood from under his nose with the back of his hand. Then he turned to Fudge. You want to call me a threat? Harry asked quietly. Fudge stared at him, pale and trembling. Harry held up the creature accord. Sign, Harry said. No more hunters. No more tunnel raids. No more collars on students. And if you want oversight, you get it through Dumbledore and a council of staff, not Lucius Malfoy. Lucius's voice was silk. Minister. Fudge flinched like Lucius had snapped a whip. Dumbledore's gaze sharpened. McGonagall's voice was icy. Minister, if you refuse, you will be refusing in front of witnesses. Snape's smile was thin, and in front of a creature your specialist just tried to provoke. Fudge's hands shook. Then Fudge looked at Lucius. And for the first time, Fudge didn't look like a puppet. He looked like a man realizing the strings were visible. Fudge swallowed. He took the quill. He signed. The parchment's runes flared faintly, like the castle itself had accepted the agreement and etched it into stone memory. Hermione exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for a year. Harry's scar cooled slightly. Lucius's eyes went flat with fury. That, Lucius murmured, voice low, won't save you. Harry met his gaze, expression calm. It will save the children, Harry said, which is more than you've ever cared about. Dumbledore stepped closer to Lucius, voice soft and lethal. And now, Lucius, Dumbledore said, we will discuss a diary. Lucius smiled thinly. Albus, you have no proof. Harry's voice cut in, quiet and surgical. You will, Harry said, when Pettigrew talks. And he will, because he's a coward, and cowards always talk when the strongest person in the room isn't the one they thought. Lucius's gaze flicked to the basilisk, coiled, still terrifying. For the first time, Lucius looked uncertain. Not afraid, but aware that the world had tilted. Harry turned back to the basilisk. Go, he whispered. Back to the deep. I will bring food. You will remain hidden. The basilisk obeyed. It slid into darkness like a nightmare, choosing to stay asleep, for now. When it rose back into the great hall, the air felt different. Not calm, but decided. Fudge tried to regain his smile in front of students and failed. He announced official new safety measures, stammering over words he didn't believe in. Lucius left Hogwarts with a face like carved marble, taking his fury with him like a promise. Pettigrew was removed under guard, still sobbing, still alive, which was a mercy Harry didn't feel like celebrating. And the students stared at Harry like he was a rumor that had learned how to walk. Ron stayed beside him, silent but present. Hermione clutched the signed accord and the compact like they were weapons made of paper. Dumbledore walked close enough to Harry that only Harry could hear him. You did not become what they wanted, Dumbledore murmured. Harry's voice was quiet. Not today. Dumbledore's gaze lingered on him, heavy with something like grief. Hogwarts listened to you, Dumbledore said softly. It has chosen you in ways it has not chosen anyone in a long time. Harry swallowed. Then I have to be careful. Dumbledore nodded once. Yes, he said, because the world will call you dark for what you are, and you'll be tempted to answer it by becoming the thing they already fear. Harry looked down at his hands. They didn't look different, but everything else did. I'm not trying to be a Dark Lord, Harry said quietly. Dumbledore's voice was gentle but honest. Intent is not always what history remembers, Dumbledore said. Only outcomes. Harry's scar warmed faintly. The black book, hidden away, felt warm too, like it approved of the phrase outcomes. Harry lifted his head. Then I'll make the outcome worth it, Harry said. Dumbledore studied him for a long beat. Then, softly, very well. That night, Harry returned to the hidden door that led toward the deep tunnels. He carried a sack of food Dobby had left where only Harry would find it. He didn't bring an audience. He didn't bring a court. He brought responsibility. He sat on the cold stone and whispered in Parseltongue. I kept the pact. The darkness shifted. The basilisk's presence stirred, vast and calm. The red-eyed shadow retreated, but it will return. Harry nodded slowly. Yeah, he whispered. I know. He set the food down and stood. Before he left, he placed his palm against the wall, feeling the castle's cold, ancient heartbeat. Don't worry, Harry murmured to the stone, to the school that had raised him and failed him and sheltered him anyway. I'm not letting them take you. The torchlight dimmed, almost like a sigh. And far away, beyond Hogwarts, in a place where shadows gathered like rot, Voldemort's will curl tighter around its plan. Not with confidence anymore, with hunger. Because now there was something new in the world. Not a boy protected by love. A boy protected by law. A boy with a monster who chose him. A boy the castle itself had started to obey. And Voldemort, for the first time in years, felt something he hated more than pain. Competition,